Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of this Elk Grove City Council at 6:04 p.m. Coming out of special meeting, there's nothing to report. Clerk, if you could request, or I'd like to request to read the Metro replay schedule.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This meeting of the Elk Grove City Council will be replayed on Metro Cable Channel 14 on Friday, January 12th at 1 p.m. and Monday, January 15th at 6 p.m. It is being closed captioned and will be webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website at elkgrovecity.org. For members of the audience who may have personal electronic devices, please place them on silent mode during the meeting. The Elk Grove City Council welcomes, appreciates, and encourages participation in the City Council meeting. City Council requests that you limit your presentation to 3 minutes per person so that all present will have time to participate. City Council reserves the right to reasonably limit the total time for public comment on any particular noticed agenda item as it may deem necessary. If you wish to address the council during the meeting, please complete a blue speaker card which can be found at the back of the room and provided to the Assistant City Clerk prior to consideration of the agenda item. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. The mayor's not feeling well this evening. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
For the roll call, Councilmember Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Detrick.
Here.
Councilmember Hume.
Here.
Vice Mayor Suen.
Here.
And Mayor Lee is absent.
All right, thank you. I see the Linda White in the audience. I'd like to invite you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's our tradition to start our meetings off with a moment of silence, so if you'll please join me. Thank you. Thank you. I have an agenda in front of us. Can I call for a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Closed session, we came out of closed session. There were no items to report. And clerk, next item, please.
That'll take us to section 4, our presentations and announcements, starting with item 4.1, which is the new hire introductions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor and council members, we have 4 departments that will be introducing 8 new city employees to you tonight, and I'd like Chief Brian Knoblet to start off for us.
Good enough, we'll take that.
All right.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. I'm Brian Knoblet, your police chief. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce our 4 newest police officers to you all. They come with varying degrees of experience. They are all currently in our field training program. A few of them are on duty right now, so I'm going to make this pretty quick so we can get them back out there. I'll start on my left at the far end here with Officer Shasta Devlin. Shasta started with us on December the 10th of this year. She came from Modesto Police Department, where she had 2 years of experience, and we're very happy to have Shasta here with us. Next to Shasta here is Christina Gonzalez. Christina is a recent graduate of the Sacramento Regional Public Safety Academy and has experience working for the District Attorney's Office also prior to joining us. So again, we're very happy to have Christina on our team. And on my immediate right is Officer Jasper Wan. Jasper is also in his field training program, and I should mention Jasper started on October 29th, and I think I neglected to mention that Christina started with us on November the 26th. So back to Jasper, he started with us on November the 29th. He studied at the San Joaquin Delta College and in fact graduated from their police academy fairly recently and then joined us immediately thereafter. So welcome, Jasper. And last but certainly not least, on my far right is Officer Jared Houston. And Jared joined us on December the 10th as well. And he is a lateral officer from Contra Costa County, where he had about 3 years of experience. So again, these are the newest members of our team. It's my pleasure to introduce them to you tonight.
That's great. Thank you, Brian. Welcome, all of you.
Next, I'd like to invite Bob Murdock to introduce a new employee for Public Works.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm pleased to introduce Ryan Chapman. Obviously, you've seen him before, and the public, I'd like you to know this is your traffic engineer. Ryan started out with San Luis Obispo County, went to Monterey County. I basically recruited him to come here. He worked for Willdan starting about a year and a half ago, summer of 2016. In November of this year, he became a city employee. Why did I recruit him? Because finding a good traffic engineer is very hard. And when you come across one in your career, you keep track of them. And when I say a good traffic engineer, he understands all the technical pieces of it, but there's a gray area in everything we do, especially in dealing with concerns of the citizens and what they see in the field and what they'd like to be addressed. And good traffic engineers understand there's a gray area, and they try to find solutions, and that's what Ryan is very good at. So I'm very pleased to have him here, and I'm excited to have a traffic engineer here for the city of Elk Grove for the long term, so that he understands the system, understands where the issues are, understands the history. So I think Ryan is going to bring quite a bit to the city over hopefully many, many years. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We'll give you applause too, Ryan.
All right,
There's a
next,
lot of traffic, so you'll be
I'll
busy.
ask Darren Wilson from Development Services to introduce some new employees.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm happy to introduce number three and number 4 of the 5 approved positions in in-house planning. We have one more to go, but after tonight, let me introduce to you Matt Diaz. He is our senior planner. He has 13 years of consulting experience throughout California, including Willdan and lately, as of late, MBI. So we welcome him. He loves outdoors and played college soccer, or you played soccer in college? More the either way. All right. For San Luis Obispo, right? All right.
Slow.
Yes. Next, we have Joseph Daguman. He is from Bloomfield, New Jersey. He brings 4.5 years of planning consultant. He's our face at the counter, the planner du jour, planner of the day, better known as our assistant planner. He has 2 sisters in the area, one that lives in Elk Grove, so he came here from Jersey, and a 5-year plan to get to California, so he made it here in 4.5. So he enjoys traveling and sports and obviously warm weather. So please welcome these 2 planners to our team.
Great.
All right, welcome them.
And last, I'd like to invite Daryl Doan to introduce our new economic development employee.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. I'm Daryl Doan. I'm the Economic Development Director. I am very excited to introduce our new Economic Development Specialist in the Economic Development Department, Luis Aguilar. Luis started with us on November 27th, so he's been here about a month. He comes to us from the East Bay Economic Development Alliance, where he spent 4 years as an economic development analyst. And prior to that, he worked for the East Bay Community Foundation. Luis has a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of San Francisco. He is a proud graduate of Valley High and grew up in Sacramento. He now lives in Elk Grove with his wife and his young son. And Luis will be taking on the role of our business support specialist. So he is the primary liaison for existing and small businesses and has been doing a great job in that so far. He's also going to be increasing our capabilities in data and research, and he'll be managing a number of our programs and incentives. So welcome, Luis.
Welcome.
That concludes the presentation for tonight.
Thank you, Laura. Next item, please.
Take us to section 5, public comment.
Okay, I see a few people signed up to speak. Amr Shergill, followed by Lynn Wheat.
Good evening, council. My name is Amr Shergill. I'm a father of 3 living here in Elk Grove. Last time I was here, I thanked you all for supporting the town halls that we had on race. Unfortunately, since that time, we've seen incidents of hate piling up in Elk Grove, accumulating millions of hits around the world and giving us a notoriety that we obviously don't want. I'm happy that today we'll be hearing a report from city staff and also from the facilitators of the town hall, letting us know what happened and giving some recommendations. I think some of those recommendations are excellent. Healing circles, non-bias training or bias recognition training for staff, I think is certainly well warranted. What I haven't heard thus far are specific public policy ideas from the council, where the council is saying these are the civic resources that we think we can bring to bear in specific programs that will help the city of Elk Grove deal with these problems. I know that there's been a sort of coming of age on the council where you have yourselves come to recognize that a problem that you didn't feel existed does in fact exist here in Elk Grove, and those of us that have been on the front lines know that this is an issue that has been festering, but it's been brought to life by the bigotry we've seen since the last election cycle. So I'm very glad that you all are dealing with it now. I have submitted a petition. I think you all received a copy signed by hundreds of people in Elk Grove, hundreds outside of Elk Grove, and hundreds across the country, asking the city to bring civic policy solutions to this problem. You know, public relations campaigns are good. Town halls are good. But we've seen across the country that if we really want to deal with these problems, we need to bring civic resources to bear. So I hope you'll have that discussion today, and I hope that you will review the petition that we submitted. I know I've given it to each of you at the town halls. It's been discussed at the town halls. It's submitted online at the city-sponsored site, and now again through a petition. If those solutions aren't ones that you feel like you can support, although I think we've laid it out for you in a very persuasive way, I hope there are others that you find are creative or that address the problem in a different way. But one way or another tonight, we should be starting that conversation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lynn Wheat, followed by Danessa Teals.
Good evening. Throughout the past few years, the city has taken on big projects and plans to pay for them by raising supplemental tax assessments on homeowners' property tax bill. When I've expressed concerns about this form of taxation in the past, one council member replied that all home buyers were told about that in the fine print of their disclosure documents when they bought their homes. As a side note, I researched some of those disclosure documents on file with the state, and they merely stated that there are supplemental taxes and the buyers need to research the actual amounts elsewhere. Since you are given these documents only after you sign the contract, I wonder how many people have actually bothered to read them. Some of you might be excited about the new aquatic center, animal shelter, and civic center, but as the maintenance and staffing costs pile up over the years, I wonder how the tolerance of the homeowner's pocketbook will last, and if this is a ticking political time bomb from a taxation standpoint. Now I read in today's Citizen that Councilmember Darren Suen says we have to raise money to pay for a new freeway interchange at Whitelock and 99 because the traffic on Elk Grove Boulevard and Bruceville is going to get worse, particularly when the new Costco goes in. I also recall an ambitious project the city is working on to build a commuter train station in the East Franklin area. I wonder how that will be paid for. I'm aware that there have been some behind-the-scenes telephone polling on a local sales tax increase, and the city's latest newsletter in soliciting ideas for things residents would be willing to pay extra for. In the interest of government transparency, I ask that the City Council come clean on its plans to put a sales tax increase on the ballot. Some could argue that the neglect in infrastructure repair and poor land use planning that overloaded our streets was preventable. But I ask that if the taxpayers are going to be asked to dig deeper into our pockets, I think we should know before you start working on the ballot language. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Danessa Teals, followed by Randy Becker. Danessa, did I say your last name correctly?
Close, it's Attilis.
Ah, thank you.
But I'll answer to pretty much anything. So, good evening, council members. I didn't actually prepare anything, and contrary to what you might believe, me and Amr don't confer before we make public comments. So it's just coincidental that I happen to be coming to you talking about our leadership on the city council making policy change. We are in a unique position in the city of Elk Grove, adjacent to the Capitol, and tons of resources, and our city is no longer a small city. We represent over 170,000 people, and while it does have a wonderful homey feel to it, we need serious policy changes that are going to affect the lives of particularly our children. And I know that our city is very diverse. I was at the Capitol today lobbying for abortion access for young women on college campuses today, and I encountered 3 different Elk Grove citizens that came to support the opposition. So I realized that my positions are not necessarily the positions of other people in Elk Grove, and you guys have to represent both of us equally. I struggle, though, to feel like the council is really representing me, and I think that comes from a place of not really knowing the council members. I don't hear you guys speak out about your positions on things that are not related to land development and what the council is currently doing. I think it's really important for the citizens to know your values and your ideals, and for you guys to speak out in strong support of something that you believe in, even if it's not a position that the council needs to weigh in on. That gives these citizens a way to feel like you are advocating for us, even if it's something that the city is not going to be participating in. And for me, I really need that. I'm sure you guys are all nice people. I've met each of you individually, and you seem lovely. But what we really need is leadership and people that are going to stand up and speak to their values, and then speak for us as citizens, even if those values are not the same that you hold. Making sure that each of the citizens that are in Elk Grove are represented on the council. So I hope that you'll take that under advisement as we go through this election season, and I'm sure you'll see more of me, but I really would appreciate hearing more from our council. Thank you.
Thank you, Danessa. Next up, Randy Becker. And I have no further speakers after Randy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to try to help my neighbor, Mr. Sergil. The Constitution says we the people, not we the party. And the 4 of you, currently 5, are going to feel a lot of pressure this election year, if you already haven't. That's why I said it. Constitution says we the people, not we the party. You got to ask yourself why you're up there and who you represent and what is your political ambition. Because if you don't support 171,000 plus citizens, you don't belong here. You just don't. We've had a very turmoil, probably 6 months in the public that really shouldn't be there. We're all neighbors. We're husbands, we're wives, we're fathers, we're mothers. We have kids in schools, colleges. Some of them participate in sports, academically. This is our city. I had to change. 42 years I've had to change. And I choose to continue living here. There's a reason. And if people can't change, then they might want to look of why they moved here and why they continue to live here. As far as some of the things that Mr. Sergil has said, there's another petition out there, 2-to-1 in the opposite direction, almost 2-to-1, that I'm understood that you folks have received that petition. That shows the difference of views in this city. My suggestion, stop kicking the ball, stop kicking the rock down the street. Don't make this a political issue. Start looking at what we can do better. If one of those issues are one vote, one district, why don't we start looking at what the other cities close to our population is doing? Start now so we plan to set it in motion a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. We have 5 representatives. Do we need 7? If we do, what is the benchmark? It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about us, we the people. And we need to start looking at our futures as a city. 17 years new, 17. And a lot of people think that this city has been around for 100 years. The town has, but not the city. Once again, start thinking about the 171,000 plus people. Not a group, not a small portion or a percentage, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Seeing no further speakers, I'm moving on to the next item.
Take us to Section 6, General Administration Information.
Thank you, Jason. First, we would like to inform the public about some major construction projects that will disrupt traffic in certain areas. First, we are preparing for the sewer lift station for the Southeast Policy area and the construction of the roundabout at Sheldon and Bradshaw Roads that will result in temporary lane closures and detours on Bruceville Road and Bradshaw Road over the next few months. Installation, the sewer line will close Bruceville Road from Bilby Road to Poppy Ridge Road through the month of May. The relocation of utilities and removal of some trees for the construction of the roundabout at Sheldon and Bradshaw will close lanes on Bradshaw Road temporarily through March. Signs and electronic message boards are in place to deter motorists, and we provide additional information on the city's website. Also, to let you know that Elk Grove Animal Services, in partnership with the Kittle Family Veterinary Practice, will offer free cat neuters to the first 50 feline customers this Saturday, January 13th, between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at the Kittle facility located at 8153 Elk Grove Boulevard. Cats may be owned, community, or feral, but they must reside in the city limits to qualify. Each cat will also receive a free rabies vaccine, an FRPC booster shot, and microchipping. Feral cats will not receive a microchip, will have their ears tipped. Please contact the Animal Services Division for an appointment or more information. Also, the Public Works Department will be conducting neighborhood and community outreach workshops to collect feedback on design concepts for the area south of the Civic Center site. A neighborhood workshop is scheduled on Tuesday, January 23rd at 6 o'clock here in the council chambers. A community workshop is also scheduled for February 6th. The city's Youth Commission will host an encore presentation of their Shape Your Future event on Saturday, January 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Wackford Community Complex. The event will feature speakers that will teach teens to balance their budget, prepare for college, and build a resume among other life skills. Advanced registration for this event is encouraged and available from our website. In accordance with city holidays, City Hall will be closed this Monday, January 15th, in observance of the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. Moving to the standing citywide initiatives update, updates start on page 3 of that report with the Camera Road widening extension. The Southeast Connector JPA submitted a SB1 competitive grant application to the Sacramento Transportation Authority Board for ranking for multiple sections along the connector, including a portion of Camera Road east of Bighorn. The grant scope was limited due to grant funding and schedule requirements. The STA Board will consider the ranking at their meeting tomorrow. With the animal shelter, the design team is preparing to advertise this project for construction. The advertisement is anticipated for January 17, 2018. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions? I have one. Laura, on the public works for the major construction projects, notifying on the website, can we make sure it's also blasted out on the Nextdoor apps and things like that, just because?
We generally, as soon as we get traffic information, we put it out on Nextdoor. So we'll
Nextdoor
make
too.
sure, I mean, that's a practice, but we'll make sure that, that these are certainly done.
Okay, good, thank you.
I think it's already up on Nextdoor.
Good, okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Take us to Section 7, council comments, reports, and future agenda items.
Okay, I'll start to my left. Councilmember Hume.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. First of all, I hope everyone had a healthy and happy holiday season, and it's been a while since we've seen each other. I had a paratransit executive committee meeting yesterday and a regional sanitation board district meeting this morning. Neither meeting had anything of Elk Grove specific. I have an STA, the Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting tomorrow, where we'll be discussing the projects that will be included for the SB1 competitive grant process. We will be recommending the Camera Road widening. And with respect to the connector in general, I just want to let you know that it was found out today that the Federal Highway Administration has added the connector alignment to its national highway system.
Oh, that's great.
So that's going to make it a lot easier to pursue federal dollars that way. And they noted in so doing, its benefit to, the connector's benefit to our local highways and interstates. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Happy holidays, or I'm sorry, Happy New Year to everybody. It's been not that busy of a month because of the holiday season. However, I was able to attend quite a few holiday dinners where I was able to attend the Asian American Real Estate Association installation dinner and co-emceed it with our Vice Mayor here. I also attended the SACOG meeting where I was also appointed to the Paratransit Board, so I'll be serving with our council member, Hume. I also attended the Warlords dinner this past weekend where they've been around for 25 years and we celebrate their 20th year of their crab feed. Also like to invite everybody to the MLK March that will be taking place on Monday. Many of us here have participated in that march. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people that attended, over 20,000 community members from our entire region that attends this march. It starts out at Sacramento City College and ends at the Convention Center, so I invite you all to attend. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Detrick.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Happy New Year, everyone. Look forward to 2018 being a great year. We got a lot of really good stuff going on in the city with the Aquatic Center. And for those of you who aren't aware, Costco is putting up signs today that all the papers have been drawn, the permits have been pulled, and they should be breaking ground any day out there, as well as many other projects we've got going on. I went to the Volunteers Annual Appreciation Luncheon. There's thousands and thousands of hours that are volunteer and policing put together, and we could not have the quality of life we have here in Elk Grove without them, because they take care of a lot of the routine duties that our gun-carrying officers do day in and day out. So appreciate everything that they do to support us. And then I had the opportunity to give a key to the city to our latest Centurion for their 100th birthday. It was Bertha Cross, and it was over at the Elk Grove Senior Assisted Living at the Commons, or excuse me, the Carlton. And so it's always a great opportunity to recognize somebody who's had that longevity and try to see if a little bit rubs off to be able to have the longevity myself. Well, that's all I have. Again, Happy New Year, and look forward to a great year with all of you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Detrick. Happy New Year as well, everybody. It's good to see you all again. Similar to our colleagues, we had a lot of holiday festivities we engaged in, and one of them we were able to join Post 233 in recognizing Ernie Costa, World War II veteran, for his years of service. All 5 of us were there. It was quite an honor to recognize him. The Warlords Crab Feed that teaches not only good basketball fundamentals, but good ethics to our 7th to 12th graders. A lot of our kids, it's termed the Sacramento Warlords, but half that organizations are kids from Elk Grove. And then, as Councilmember Hume mentioned, we have our STA meeting tomorrow. And then we did have one SACOG meeting in between the holidays. And most recently, I was honored just today, honored with being appointed as vice chair of the Transportation Committee, which allows a lot of funding for for our road projects, so grateful for that. Okay, and, thank you very much, thank you. And I would like to request, and the mayor's not here, but the 2x2 meeting, given the recent articles in the newspaper, we're all one community, so I would like to request a 2x2 meeting. My recent appointment here as vice mayor with the school district, talk about those issues as well. Thank you. Next item.
Take us to Section 8, our consent calendar items.
Okay. I'd like to give the public an opportunity to comment on the consent item, and I see nobody sign up to speak, so I'll close public comment and council direction and deliberation.
Move the consent calendar?
Second?
Okay, and then I just want to clarify, I'll be voting only on, I'll be excluding items 819 and 821. I need to recuse myself because by law, I own a small share of Costco stock, but that limit precludes me from being able to. Oh, did you see it?
It's not there.
Sorry, we don't have one, but if we
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn, come on up.
Okay.
Lynn. Yeah, come on up, Lynn.
For some reason, it didn't show up, Lynn. No apology for that. Sorry.
I did.
That's
No, I
I
believe you.
hate to
It
jump
just-
up, but I
No, we
did.
believe you.
Okay, under 8.14, I'm
Yep.
excited that we're going to get the Amgen Tour here again. I volunteered last year, and it was a wonderful event. I would like, however, though, in fiscal and financial responsibilities, for us to have some discussion about what the total cost is to the city. I don't remember last year after the event if we ended up getting a report on that, how much it cost the city and what it brought back revenue-wise into the city. I know it's always a guess, but I think some follow-up would be wonderful to have that, to see if it's really a benefit to us, especially as we're using it towards Join the Movement, because I would like to see some of our monies, if we look at it, really connecting some of those trails that just are chopped off, and work on really getting some of the trails away from the streetways. Because I've noticed, and it happened to me just going on the trail across one of the crosswalks, somebody was on their phone texting, and this person never even looked up. And if I was not paying attention, now you might have wanted it, but I would have been taken out. My concern here is that kids don't normally pay attention either because they're walking across the crosswalks on their phones. So as we look at this, it is a wonderful event for the city. I'd like to see if it's the best value for our Join the Movement plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we go ahead and have a report back if the council agrees? Well, okay, I see nods there, nods here.
Yeah, one thing with that, and Lynn, this is just my opinion, that I think that's a great idea, but there are some intangible values of name recognition for the city that goes beyond just what we get back in a financial aspect, but I think that is important as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm excluding items 8.19 and 8.21 from my vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? Okay, motion carries. And next item, please.
Take us to Section 9, our public hearing, starting with item 9.1, which is a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution approving the 2018 Capital Facilities Fee Nexus Study Update and establishing the fees relative to the CFF program.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Suen, council members. My name is Brandon Merritt. I'm the finance analyst with the city's finance department in charge of development impact fee administration. This public hearing is to recommend the adoption of a resolution approving an update to the city's capital facilities fee program, also known as the CFF, and adjusting the fees accordingly. As a high-level overview of the changes, the facilities contained within this 2018 update to the CFF remain largely unchanged over the 2009 update to the CFF, with the exception of 1, updated construction costs, 2, planned rapid transit facilities, which are largely offset by an 80% federal funding expectation, and an increase to the square footage for the animal shelter in this 2018 update. This square footage increase mirrors the most up-to-date design plans for the animal shelter
and its site improvements such as parking and landscaping. That is really the biggest change contained in this 2018 update to the CFF. And so with that, I will hand it over to our consultant who helped the city update this Nexus study, Victor Erzik with Goodwin Consulting.
Good evening.
Good evening, members of the council, city staff. My name is Victor Erzik, and I'm going to highlight some of the findings here in the report. A brief overview. I'm going to go over the background of the CFF program, the purpose of updating that program, the Mitigation Fee Act, which governs impact fees in the state of California. I'm going to discuss some of the changes in the fee program, the facility categories and costs, and I'm going to have a comparison to the existing city fees and the proposed fees, and then I'll take some questions. So the capital facilities fee program was originally established by the city in 2001. The program was updated in 2004 and then lastly in 2009. And the capital facilities fees are fees for capital facilities. They don't fund operation and maintenance costs. It's a funding mechanism for new development to fund their fair share of capital facilities. It's typically levied at building permit. It's applied citywide, and it's typically updated annually for inflation. The purpose of the fee update basically is to reevaluate your capital costs and facilities that are in the program. Also to look at population and employment numbers, as well as finally updating the capital facilities fees. Now, the Mitigation Fee Act was adopted by the state in 1987, and it has provision requiring that any fees that are established or increased be reasonably related to the impact that development has on those capital facilities. And the fees have to be roughly proportionate to the cost of the facilities that are attributed to new development. The fees cannot fund existing development share of the costs, and they can't fund existing deficiencies as well. Some of the major changes to this update includes a larger animal shelter facility and the costs associated with that. It creates an animal shelter sub-fee category within the corporate yard fee. It includes rapid transit facilities. Those were included in the 2009 study, but they were removed because of economic considerations as well as the schedule of constructing those facilities. Also, the city assumes that it will receive federal transportation funding for the cost of rapid transit facilities to the tune of about 80% of the cost. And also, the fee study updates population and employment estimates. So the fee categories include city administration facilities, police facilities, corporation yard facilities, the animal shelter, library facilities, and transit facilities. For city administration facilities, we include about 12,000 square feet of building, totaling about $4 million. Land costs associated with that, roughly $430,000 for a total of $4.4 million. For police facilities, that includes 30,000 square foot of building. The land associated with that, 2.8 acres, and police vehicles. So total cost of facilities comes to $22.8 million. Corporation yard facilities, including buildings, totaling about 98,000 square feet, 9 acres of land, for a total cost of $23.4 million. For the animal shelter, the facility is a 21,850 square foot facility with over 100,000 square feet of exterior land, including parking, and includes a financing cost component for a total cost of $21.6 million. Library facilities include approximately 70,000 square feet of additional library building space, technology and furniture, fixture, and equipment, and land totaling approximately $51 million. Transit facilities include transit courtyard buildings totaling about 41,000 square feet, transit passenger amenities, and rapid transit facilities, in total approximately $35 million.
Victor, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
When we were going through the buildings, you didn't have fixtures and equipment in FF&Es and in those as a separate line item, but you did for the animal shelter. Is there a reason behind that?
For library, those costs
For
were
libraries.
delineated. In the other building, it's assumed that those facilities are included in those costs.
Okay, but you don't make that same assumption for library?
No, well, for library, those were separately delineated because the technology component was not included in the prior study.
Okay, thank you.
And so here's our fee comparison. In the first column, we've got the proposed CFF. Second column, we have the current CFF fees, and then the dollar increase, and then a percentage increase. So I'm going to go over single family. So for a single family unit, the proposed CFF is $4,256. Current CFF fee is $2,863. That's an increase of $1,393, or approximately 49% increase in the fee. Under non-residential for commercial, the proposed commercial fee is $1.28. It's currently 98 cents. That's a 30-cent per square foot increase, or a 31% increase. That concludes my presentation, and I'll entertain questions at this time.
Okay, any questions? Councilman Hume?
Yeah, thank you. Going back to the slide on the Mitigation Fee Act that actually allows this to be imposed on new development, it says that they roughly proportional to the impact that new development has created and that cannot use existing development's fund of the, or share of the facilities. Now, I hate even asking these questions because I've been a big proponent of getting the animal shelter built and I want to have it paid for and have it actually up and running. But two questions is, wouldn't there be a component of the animal shelter that is a burden of the existing development? And secondly, in the staff report, it says that the 2009 CFF courtyard fee included a total roughly 10% of what is now required for the animal shelter, and yet the new fee includes the full burden cost of building the animal shelter. Isn't there a double dipping there, so to speak?
No, there isn't. We actually allocate a portion of that animal shelter to existing development. So the full cost of the animal shelter is not allocated to future development.
So the full cost of the animal shelter is not $21.6 million?
That is the full cost, but the total cost isn't incorporated into the fee program.
I'm reading the staff report where it says staff has added $21.6 million to the 2018 CFF Nexus study.
If I can clarify, The animal shelter is the 21.6 million, and if you, there is a table in the Nexus report that lists all of the facilities and their total cost, and then it gives you a breakdown for the federal funding, in particular for the rapid transit projects of 80%, and then it gives a breakdown of how much of the remaining cost is allocated to existing development and how much is allocated to future development. In the animal shelter, for example, the existing development's responsibility is 75.7% of the total cost of that 21.6. And so when the fee is developed, only the 24.3% of the 21.6 is used in the calculation of new development's fee.
So that's this table ES1 here? Good grab on the numbers, by the way. Dead on 75.7 to 24.3. Okay, so 21.6 has been added to the Nexus study, but not to the fee program.
The fee program is not responsible for the full 21.6.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a couple. Just for clarification, Victor or Brad, well, Victor, you don't have the advantage of this, but I talked about this with staff yesterday. Could you explain a little bit about the transit fee and what that encompasses and what the expectation is at build-out?
In particular, you're referring to the rapid transit component?
Bus rapid transit component.
And so the rapid transit component was not included in the adopted 2009 Nexus report, but is included in this report. But even though that totals, you know, a good number, can't add it real quick on the top of my head, 80% of that is also anticipated to be funded by federal grants when that time comes. And so therefore, again, only 20% of the rapid transit cost would filter down into the calculation of the transit fee.
Okay, and so it reflects a fair share cost of new development at build-out to fund a bus rapid transit.
So then even that 20% then is allocated between existing development and future development. So future development only gets their fair share of, which in that case is 60.5% of the 20%.
Great, thank you. And then one more, just for clarification, because of the courtyard component uses a higher population build-out than what was anticipated. I think it includes a service area portion. Can we just get some clarification for that?
So you do have the consideration, and Victor, you can help me on this. Some of the, I don't believe it's in every single methodology because it depends on the actual and who's using it, but there is persons served include not only residents, but also those that are employed in the city's boundaries, but are commuting from outside the city. So those are also persons served. And so just to make it, oh, I don't have the number in front of me, but let's say there were 100 employees that are coming from outside the city, only 20-some% of those are considered in that number that gets added to the build-out number as persons served.
So it's 205,000 at build-out, 230,000 approximately.
Right, includes the impact of the
Yeah,
employment from outside.
Correct.
About 25,000 coming in from outside. Okay, thank you. Last chance, any more questions? Okay, yeah, Councilman Detrick.
I just wanted to make a comment. Brandon had the opportunity to get this in my briefing, so I appreciate the details. That's why I didn't really have any questions, because you answered everything that I had relative to what I'd already previously looked at in the report over the weekend, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to declare the public hearing open, and I see Lynn Wheat has signed up to speak. Oh, I'm sorry, open the public comment. welcome back.
Oh, well, thank you. So the only comment I have is that I know we have with the Nexus studies raised the special assessments that the homeowners pay, and this is related to the developers. And I think that the report that they have is saying that you can do the maximum, that would be legally within boundaries, would be good because you've done that with the assessments that each of our homeowners pay. In, I think it was May, I can bring the report up, you raise them to they're working at the upper limit that they can. So it would, in all fairness to everybody within our area, I think the developers should have to be able to be responsible for what they're saying we need as a city to cover their impacts from their home building. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other speakers, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed and look to council for deliberation and direction. It's a pleasure of the council.
I think, this is obviously a long overdue on doing a revision to this, and I think it's a good step in the right direction. We definitely need this as we move forward, and I support staff's recommendation tonight.
Second. I feel the same. I actually like the summary and the update on the 3 key adjustment areas. It's a huge report, and so I wasn't here at the beginning, so to be able to see the comparison in the 3 areas helped me.
Yeah, I'll just say that as Ms. Wheat has identified at a couple different times at the podium, there's only a couple of silos of money where you're going to be able to pay for the facilities that you need to provide to serve your residents. That's either taxing the residents themselves or taxing the development before the residents get here. Incurring fees, I guess, would be the more appropriate term. But so in general, obviously, raising fees is not something I'm happy about doing, but I think that if you have certain priorities and certain items on your wish list that you want for your community, you have to figure out how you're going to get them paid for. And this is one of those ways, and so I support the motion.
Yeah, and I'll just close by saying, as we grow as a city, our needs will continue to rise, as illustrated by the additional buildings, the additional size and square footage of the animal shelter. As we add more a bigger police force, we're going to need facilities for that, so that's got to be paid for somehow. Obviously, I'm not a huge proponent of increasing fees, but there are certain needs that we need to have, and so the AB 1600 Nexus study ensures that there's a fair and equitable process so we can balance out what our needs are versus what it will cost developers as they come into the city. So go ahead, Councilman Detrick.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, just to kind of piggyback on Councilman Hume's comments, I agree with that. The only thing is, there is no cost of living adjustment or anything built into that, so there isn't any mechanism to automatically keep up with the time. But I think to your point, that a lot of people don't realize that they forget that typically those fees that the developers pay get passed on to the buyer. So ultimately, whoever the buyer is paying that fee. So it's really not, it's almost a pass-through in essence from the developer. So it's not really coming so much out of the developer's pocket, it's coming out of the future home buyer's pocket.
Just a correction, there is an annual adjustment for inflation for these fees with the San Francisco Construction Cost Index. But just to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just as a counter to your point, I will say that actually there's a certain truth to what you're saying, but the market will only bear a certain sales price that the market will bear. And to the extent that the margin then shrinks on that at some point the value of the lot has been devalued by the amount of the fee that will be put against it. So it does get spread across everybody who touches the process.
So I still haven't heard a motion.
I thought.
Oh, he did. I second.
There's a motion and a second.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions opposed? Motion passes. Next item, please.
Next item will take us to Section 10, our regular agenda action items, starting with item 10.1, which is to review the report from the American Leadership Forum and receive City Council direction on possible next steps regarding community relations.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Kara Reddick, Deputy City Manager. I'm here tonight to talk about the American Leadership Forum report and the topic of community relations. The City and the CSD hired the American Leadership Forum Mountain Valley chapter to provide 2 primer sessions for community members on the science of implicit bias. The first session was on October 30th, and it went over identifying the bias and automatic associations that exist below the level of the conscious mind, and understanding how one's own bias becomes a lens to understanding biases in others. The second training session was on November 6th, and participants examined 3 themes for discussion, which included public concern about racism in the community, education on racism, and a perceived lack of support from institutions. The participants also explored debiasing techniques at the personal, interpersonal, institutional, and structural levels. The American Leadership Forum provided a report to the city, which includes recommendations and proposed next steps, which I'll go over. The city has provided the report to the CSD and the Elk Grove Unified School District, and the city has compiled our related action items, which I'll be going over. So the ALF report, we'll call it ALF, American Leadership Forum report recommendations, include the use of racial healing circles. Racial healing circles are organized as open, welcome, and inclusive spaces for individuals to focus on racial healing through storytelling and sharing. These are best used early after an incident to allow individuals to process anger and deep hurt in a safer, more private venue. The second recommendation is to provide leadership and staff training on implicit bias. Their third recommendation is to send a follow-up survey to participants of the town hall meetings, and they have some specific questions that I outline in the report on questions that we could ask. The report includes a variety of individual suggestions from community members, and while some of the suggestions are specific to the city, many are not specific to the city. And so they encourage any organization or individual to use this community-driven feedback to take the lead on discussions with entities or organizations. And they also encourage us to find ways to continue the conversation. Some of those ways can be determined if there's an existing group or a committee that can specifically focus on continuing the dialogue as part of their tasks, post available resources on various websites for residents and for reference, utilize community tools such as social media, newsletter publications, and other available resources to periodically educate residents on the issue of implicit bias, and look for opportunities to promote campaigns focused on community love and no hate. So I'm going to take the next few slides are the city action item summary, which is essentially our response to the ALF report. So the city's public awareness efforts, we have one that we've had undergoing for the last few years. It's our No Place for Hate proclamation. In September 2016, the City Council proclaimed Elk Grove as no place for hate and presented that proclamation to the Multicultural Committee. On October 25th, 2017, the City Council reaffirmed that proclamation and strengthened it to be more inclusive. The city will continue to use our resources to further the discussion on race relations. For example, in the January-February newsletter, we highlighted some of the personal debiasing techniques that came out of the town hall meetings. Staff created and launched the Humanity Campaign, which uses the words humanity, unity, and understanding with the tagline, "Between you and I, there's no place for hate." We're utilizing this campaign on a billboard, at bus shelter stops, in social media, in magazines, and print as well. There'll be local business window clings that will be available at the end of the month for businesses that sign on to the Humanity Pledge. They'll be available at City Hall and through the local Chamber of Commerce. Our town hall meetings, we established an ad hoc committee made up of Vice Mayor Soon and Councilmember Hume that hosted the 3 town hall meetings on October 23rd, October 30th, and November 6th. And the purpose of the meetings was to discuss race relation, biases, and ideas on how we move forward as a no place for hate community. And those meetings were held in response to a resident's request. The city also created a central location on our website where information and the discussion on race can continue. In regards to our police department, the PD continues its investigation into the hate crimes that occurred in Old Town. Detectives have met with the FBI agents to discuss the evidence obtained in these investigations, and FBI agents have confirmed that all viable leads have been exhausted. Detectives remain hopeful that information will come forward that leads to successful resolution of these investigations. And the PD has been made aware of the truck flying a Confederate flag throughout town. The PD continues to make public crime statistic information available, and they encourage residents to register their email with crimereports.com to receive alerts regarding specific crimes in specific areas. The PD wants to encourage residents to call when they see suspicious activity, and they're also in the early stages of preparing the 2017 annual report, which will be released in February. The Chief of Police is working on the development of a Chief's Community Advisory Board to serve as a resource for the chief in developing community policing priorities and strategies. One goal of the CAB will be to provide a forum for police community interaction to address public safety and other important community issues to further improve the quality of life in the community. More details on the CAB's roles, composition, and expectations will soon be released by the Chief of Police. Regarding the diversity audit inclusion strategy that the city is undergoing, the city established an ad hoc committee made up of council members Nguyen and Hube, and this committee is focused on workforce diversity. The ad hoc committee met with interested residents and stakeholders to release an RFP and establish the scope for that RFP. The RFP was released, and on December 13th, the city hired the Miller Law Group to conduct a diversity audit and inclusion strategy of our workforce. The diversity audit will review the city's internal classifications, recruitment strategies, policies, and procedures, along with a large host of topics. The inclusion strategy will help identify organizational strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in relation to diversity, and it'll establish action-oriented goals and develop any relevant and necessary policies. And out of those two efforts, any needed staff training will be identified and conducted. Throughout 2017, city staff has been trained on implicit bias through a 2-hour course based on research conducted by Dr. Eberhard of Stanford University. City contract staff are also being offered the same training in January of 2018. And as noted earlier, additional staff training will be identified through the diversity audit and inclusion strategy effort. In regards to our human resources and recruitments, staff has been attending diversity-focused job fairs to help meet and encourage diverse job candidates. A list of some recent ones are there. And Human Resources has increased advertising for recruitment efforts to include more specific diverse groups and associations, as well as larger networks. So some examples of their efforts are there. And each of these organizations listed are dedicated to creating a diverse pipeline of potential candidates for employment. And Human Resource staff attended the following community events, reaching out to encourage a diverse group of applicants to apply for positions at the city. So talking about the Multicultural Committee for a moment, this committee was formed in 2011 and it includes 10 members. The committee is tasked with educating the community about the city's cultural diversity, advising on best practices to outreach to various ethnic communities and faith-based organizations, providing guidance to the council on issues impacting multicultural communities, and researching and planning the annual Multicultural Festival that is attended by over 10,000 participants each year. They've just completed their 6th festival on August 26th. The committee's tasks are wider than solely hosting the annual Multicultural Festival. Some of their recent projects have included developing elements of the Humanity Campaign and the No Place for Hate Proclamation. They hosted a Diwali celebration, and they've been developing an application process and procedure for considering sister city applications. So staff recommends that the City Council request the Multicultural Committee to seek additional ways in which to continue the conversation on the city's relationship with the diverse racial, ethnic, and cultural communities in Elk Grove. And this is in line with one of their tenants. And the city's been working to engage other local government agencies. The city did partner with the CSD on the town hall meetings, and the CSD is undergoing an independent audit of its own workforce. On December 15th, the City Council sent a letter to the Elk Grove Unified School District encouraging its leadership to consider the report from the American Leadership Forum and possible next steps that may be taken within their purview. And the city stands ready to partner with our local sister agencies to be a resource and a partner. So in summary, staff's recommendation is to review the report from the American Leadership Forum and receive City Council direction on possible next steps regarding community relations.
Thank you, Kara. Any questions? Yeah, Councilman Deschry.
Karen, more of a comment. One, I think that was, very detailed, and I appreciate all the work that was put into that report. You mentioned our partners, one with the school district. They wanted me to be sure it was announced that on June 16th, January 16th, the Elk Grove Unified School District will be having their board meeting, and they would love anybody who would like to speak on this or hear more about this. Then they've got a lot of, I believe, planned for their event with some of the things that happened with the young lady from Pleasant Grove High School.
Great, thank you for mentioning that.
And then just, Chief, I know since you took over, roughly a year ago, that you've kind of had this on your plate, and we've had several conversations. So I support from our conversations. I look forward to the final product coming out. But the discussions we have, I support your Police Chief Advisory Committee very much.
Councilman Hume.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Detrick, for mentioning the school board meeting. I was also asked to make light of that. Kara, I just want to clarify one thing on the results of the forums. You said PD has been made aware of the truck flying the Confederate flag. Just so everyone understands, so we don't get into a First Amendment issue, that is not the reason that truck is being watched by the police departments, because they're acting in an intimidating manner and doing things that are threatful in nature. And so their behavior goes far beyond just flying that flag. I also want to commend you on the Community Advisory Board. I think that is responsive to some of the requests of the community. It was mentioned both in the petition that Mr. Shergill submitted, as well as the recap of notes from the community meetings, that one of the things that they would like to see is a quantitative measurement of hate incidents. Do we have any kind of hate incident tracking that we're currently undertaking, and/or is that something we could implement without too much damage to the department's gray matter?
Well, I think our gray matter will survive the endeavor. And actually, we are working on that currently. It does require some revisions to our record management system to be able to track those items. As with any, and I'm not a IT person, so pardon me if I don't get this just right. But as with any system, to extract the data focuses on keyword searches and in our case, codes and things of that nature. So what we're devising is a system where we essentially have the ability for the officers to create a hashtag, kind of a system within our RMS system that will allow for us to go back and retrieve data on any incident where someone feels that they are victimized based on one of the hate crime criteria. Even if it's not a hate crime, it would be able to be recalled as a hate incident,
okay,
which I think is consistent with what was requested in Mr. Shergill's petition.
Correct.
So we are working on that as we speak.
Great, thank you. And then the last thing that I'd kind of want to bring up is getting back to the idea of the school board meeting on the 16th. There are a couple of different stories that came out of Pleasant Grove High School recently. One was very inspiring, about a young woman who is using her voice to stand up for what she sees happening at her school and things that she feels are wrong and unjust, which they are. And then the other one was completely disgusting behavior and conduct posted online. And to you parents out there, and to any young people who happen to be watching this or hear about this later, I just want to warn you that you may have thoughts that you think are cool or that maybe are not fully developed or whatever. You may regret them someday. And when you post that kind of stuff online, it stays with you forever. A future job employer or maybe a girlfriend down the road is going to look that up and see that about you. It's just not smart. Aside from the disgusting content, you need to be a smarter people. So,
Agreed, Councilman Hume. We'll talk more later. If there's no more questions.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Yes. Kara, the implicit bias training that was conducted, who conducted that training for staff?
Staff in our police department conducted it based off of training that they had conducted through principled policing, and the chief can talk more about that.
Okay, so it was like a train the trainer kind of thing. The trainer came out, trained some trainers, and then our trainers then, okay.
Yes, we sent our trainers out because we wanted to roll out the principled policing, the full-day training for our staff. And our entire staff, by the way, went through that, myself included. And that was an 8-hour course. What the instructors did was they parsed out a module from that 8-hour session, which was strictly focused on implicit bias, and condensed that into about a 2-hour session for the remaining city staff and also our volunteers.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Deschler.
I have one other question for the chief. On the, obviously, you don't track, previously, we hadn't tracked hate incidents, but we have tracked hate crimes, correct?
That's correct for the most part. We absolutely track hate crimes as per.
I mean, I don't know, is it the FBI criteria that?
It's the
bases
FBI,
the-
it's really Department of Justice requirement that we track those, and we report out on those annually.
And how many have we had those in the history of the city, do you know?
I'm going to shut my mic off for a second as I fumble through some papers. While I'm looking for that data, I can state that we've had 6 of those incidents in 2017. Going back.
That was 6 incidents?
Six hate crimes, 6 reported hate crimes. That's not, thank you for clarifying that. These are hate crimes that I'm referring to now. 6 in 2017, and those include the recent events that brought about the town hall meetings. Or at least in part brought about the town hall meetings. Looks like there were 3 in 2016, 3 in 2015, 2 in 2014, 4 in 2013, 3 in 2012, and 6 in 2011. Okay. So that's going back several years. Yet another question, I believe.
Oh, that was my main question. I wanted to just get a flavor of if there's a pattern, but it's kind of a roller coaster. So it's been, in 2011 was 6, this year was 6, and then it's been 2 to 4 in between, so.
Right, and I think we were talking about tracking the hate incidents versus the hate crimes. And we do, through our current configuration of our record management system, have the ability to track some hate incidents. But again, those are based on keyword searches and require an actual manual search of records to go back and find calls where perhaps a victim articulated either in their call to dispatch or their encounter with the police officer in making the report that they felt they were victimized of, based on one of the protected criteria as articulated in the hate crimes legislation. However, upon further review, some of those incidents were not actually hate crimes. So there's a discrepancy there. We have, for instance, I do have a chart here. In 2017, we had a total of 15 incidents that we were able to locate in our system that would be referred to as hate crime incidents, whereas 6 of those resulted in actual hate crime filings, classifications as hate crimes.
So the 15 were hate incidents and the 6 were hate crime?
That boiled down to 6 that were actual hate crimes. Okay. But I do recognize and certainly do not disagree with the need to track incidents as well, because I think really there could be some preemptive action, if nothing else, that we might be able to take based on an increase.
Yeah, we can also see
data.
patterns and cut it off at the pass.
Perhaps. That would be the hope, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Are you aware, Chief, of how the statistic stacks up against other cities our size?
I really can't speak to it, Vice Mayor. I don't have that data in front of me, and I would hate to make a mistake in that way. So I'm not certain.
But people do, obviously cities track their own, so there's.
Well, they all get, the actual hate crimes get reported to a national database.
Okay.
So the data is all there. I just do not have it in front of me at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
And Chief, not to make light of it, but one incident and one crime is one too many of each. So we'll never eliminate them, but I just want people to know that.
Absolutely.
One incident of either one is unacceptable. And Councilman Hume, I need to commend you because you called out this young lady for the inappropriate action, and I support that 100%. You know, I've raised 3 sons, and believe me, if my kids did something like that, I would be so disgusted, so embarrassed, and not even this being my child. It's absolutely disgusting. And I can't imagine what those families are going through and what the heartache they've made to the other people in the community with the harshness and disgust. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, this is why we need to come together as a community, school district, the council, what we represent as a community, reinforcing what we believe, that is to have an inclusive and tolerant community. So we'll come back to us. I want to go out to public comment at this time. I'm going to open it up. I have a few speakers signed up to speak. First one is Hilda Curry, followed by Danessa Attilis. Hilda Curry not here? Okay, Danessa Attilis. Or Hilda Curry is here. Hilda?
Good evening.
Good evening.
To the mayor who's absent this evening, to the councilman. Since there will be the school board meeting coming up on the 16th, I'll just hold my remarks until then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Danessa Attilis, followed by Amr Shergill.
Thanks for getting my last name right. So when I read the ALF report, I was really shocked and saddened by the recommendations, which I found wholly incongruent with the problems that we're facing here in Elk Grove. And I'm not sure what I expected, to be honest, but it definitely wasn't healing circles and more training for the staff. I was hoping for policy change and recommendations of a policing commission. I am encouraged by the chief of police's forum. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, and I look forward to hearing about that and seeing how citizens can be involved in that. I'm also encouraged about the hate incident tracking. And I'm glad to hear that you guys are going to be working with the school board. I think your request of the 2x2, now that you're newly elected vice mayor, is really important. But honestly, like, we need something now. It's not this, clearly the situation isn't improving. It is disintegrating, and the people that we are reaching with our implicit bias trainings, I sat through all 3 of those, and while they were valuable for me, the people that needed those trainings were not in that room anytime. And we need to be bringing the conversation to the people that are impacted, and we need to be bringing the conversation to the people that desperately need to hear it, and that includes being in our schools. I feel like we need a policy change, specifically with the school board, and that I realize that you guys have said in the past that it's not something that is in the purview of the city council to dictate what the school board needs to do. I disagree entirely. I feel like that's something within our purview and something that needs to take place. I also disagree entirely that the multicultural committee is qualified to handle this type of the gravity of the situation. They are very nice people, and they put on a great multicultural festival, and they are individually qualified in many ways, but I have sat through several of their meetings. Many of them don't attend regularly, and it's simply not within their capacity. We need more people that are dedicated to making sure that not one more incident happens, not one more child is scared to go to school. Why are our children the leaders in this movement right now? Why are the young people in our high schools having to step up and speak out? We are their advocates. We should be speaking for them. And I'm really appalled by this ALF report. It doesn't do enough. Healing circles are great. They are not going to solve the problem. I implore you guys to step up and do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Amr Shergill, followed by Tracy Stafford.
Good evening again, Council. You know, I'm blessed to live in Elk Grove. My 3 children are born and raised here. And if we're honest with ourselves, we have to say that our blessings here are dependent upon generations of sacrifice by civil rights leaders across the country. And it's the African American community that has led the way with their bodies, with their resources, with their lives, to give us the life we enjoy here today. Councilman Suen, Councilmember Nguyen, myself, we wouldn't enjoy the lives we have. You wouldn't enjoy those chairs, the seats, the positions that you have without the sacrifice of the African American community, foremost for generations. And yet we find ourselves here in Elk Grove that the African American community is taking the brunt of hate crimes over several months. It started with the horrible bigotry of the election cycle, and then enlivened by the murder by the Nazi KKK Confederate bigots of Charlottesville. So if we reflect on how we are going to honor the sacrifices of those that came before us, I'm troubled by the conversations we're having now. I know your heart's in the right place, and I know that Chief Noblet, his heart is in the right place. But if we turn back several months ago, you know, I had conversations with several council members about the race issue I saw festering before we gained this notoriety. And the council members' response was, we don't have that problem here in Elk Grove. So that, and that wasn't one council member, it's more than one. And I think that's something that we see in the community. And that, I don't say that to blame. I think I have plenty of blind spots in plenty of areas. But what that means is that we are not collectively capable and competent to establish the civic policy solutions that we're discussing. So hate incident tracking, one district, one vote, a community policing commission, a school board curriculum that you could advocate for. And we don't have that capacity here. And I know that because just recently we had an advertisement on Facebook through the city of Elk Grove regarding Kwanzaa, which included the candles of Hanukkah and included the Star of David. So it indicates to me we don't have the cultural competency we need. So what I suggest is, instead of trying to create the wheel, we look at other regions that have dealt with these issues before, and we try to build off that. And who are the organizations in our community that have that skill set already? You know, the NAACP, you know, Council on American Islamic Relations. We have JACARA and the Sikh Coalition. We have, you know, organizations from Latino community, I mean, every other community that you can think of that are dealing with these issues and can provide input. What we should not be doing is having the council members direct staff to create a solution to the problem when we collectively created this problem and we are not competent to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Tracy Stafford, followed by Lorene Pryor. Hi, good evening. You're not Lorene.
I'm not Tracy.
Hi, Shari.
Hi,
Yeah.
Tracy, let me go. I have to go back to work. But I just want to, first of all, I just want to say thank you guys for everything you guys have done on Elk Grove Boulevard, from the lights to cutting down the bushes, putting lights inside the parking lot to make us feel safe. I really appreciate it. What happened this past couple weeks, I hope you guys believe that it's real now. And some of the stuff that I've been dealing with just today, we had the news people come out to my salon. I didn't call them. They came out to talk about what happened. And I had neighbors in Old Town rush out their store to tell the news that I put that note on my door. My family came out and put that racist note on my door. And I'm still the reason why all this stuff is happening in Elk Grove. This is happening in Old Elk Grove. This is what my neighbors, the coin shop on Elk Grove Boulevard, the antique shops, that's 2 stores down from me, it's spreading across Old Elk Grove. I had another neighbor come around from around the corner a couple of weeks ago when he saw me on the news, and he said, the rumor around Old Town is that you placed that note. It's hurtful. You were a victim once, and now you're a victim again. You guys need to listen. That little girl from Pleasant Grove said a noose was thrown inside the classroom. Why we didn't know anything about that. that she was chased home, or when she was walking home, a truck pulled up and called her and called her a nigger. She was scared. And then she go to Pleasant Grove High and tell the principal, and they tell her, you're making a big thing out of nothing. This is what our children are faced with. And I say it again, I know you said that you drove down, Councilmember Pat, you said that you drove down Elk Grove Boulevard, and when you drove there, you saw nothing but peaceful people laughing. You didn't really see the racism. But let me tell you, east of 99, you would see it. When you go through old Elk Grove, you will see it. It used to be Elk Grove, used to be the hub of racism in Elk Grove. Now it's Pleasant Grove, and it's been Pleasant Grove since a lot of the kids that's east start going to Pleasant Grove. This is not the first time. I hear stories about this all the time, and our kids need to be protected. What are we gonna do? And I know it's an Elk Grove Unified School District issue, but we have to figure out, how can we talk to these kids? How can we touch the hearts of the babes to let them know it's not right? It's just not right. So I thank you. I do thank you for putting on the town hall meetings for us. But again, we have to do more. It's real. It's live, real, in old Elk Grove. And we need you guys to do something. And Chief, thank you for the camera. The guy said today he's pissed off at me because we spent $14,000 on the camera and it's all my fault. You know, it's just, it's sad because I feel like I was targeted once and now I'm back being targeted again. And I don't know what to do. I'm fed up. I'm tired.
Well, Shari, just know we're here to support you. We've been supporting you from the beginning. We are still here. I encourage you to go to the school district on January 16th and let them know these same statements and make sure they hear you as well. We're going to have a 2x2 with the school board, and we'll also bring it up. And so we need to keep working together.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And Sheriff, we also sent a letter, I think you heard, we sent a letter to the school district signed by the entire council wanting to support a much stronger curriculum and how we're going to address these issues.
Yeah, and I did bring it up. I went to a couple of school board meetings, and I did say that the city of Elk Grove is willing to work with you guys. We need to figure out how to work together. I mean, I know it's separate, but we have to figure out how to work together. I'm telling you, our kids are scared. They're scared. Thank you.
Thank you, Shari. Next speaker, Tracy Stafford. And then Lorene Pryor. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, good evening. Well, I also wanted to thank you for the efforts, because I know that you've spent countless hours trying to do the best that you can with what's happening in the city. And, you know, I've spoken to most of you, you know, as a colleague, as a candidate, as an advocate, and today I'm going to speak to you as a mom, because I have 4 children that have gone through the Elk Grove School District, 3 of them students at Pleasant Grove High School. And what they always say to me is, Mom, please don't get involved. Don't talk about it, because I will take it on, you know, when I hear these types of things that are happening. So I've always respected their wishes and not gotten involved when they were called the N-word, not gotten involved when they spoke up about something and they ended up in detention. But I need this city council to understand that this is our normal. And I've said that to you, Darren Soon. I've said it to you, Councilman Dietrich. And for the most part, it's as though, I don't know if we just want to believe that it really is, or there are isolated incidents, or if it's because you don't see it, so you don't believe it. And all I'm asking of you is to, when we tell you these stories, believe us. We have no reason to lie about this. And the price of admission, being an African-American mother, children, is to basically suck it up. It's to suck it up so that we can live in a wonderful neighborhood otherwise. It's to suck it up so we can get a better education. The reason that I moved my children here 17 years ago. But that's a part of our world that we have to deal with because it just is. It is our normal. And you can't deal with an issue that you don't understand. So when I'm hearing about all of the work that's being done, and it's being done internally, if you don't have the lens through which to view the issue that really represents us, that understands our experiences, then you can't possibly come up with outcomes that are going to be beneficial to us. And that's really the challenge. And again, I'm just asking. I mean, for example, when I sent that email out to some trusted messengers who we had been communicating about different issues throughout the city, at least several of you shared that email. And all I was asking for was to have the race relations town halls in a venue that was lighted so that we didn't walk out into a dark park. At least one of you printed that out and ran around showing people as though this was something to laugh at or to ridicule, or, you know, this is what she did, she put it in writing, get her. I can take it. You know, I can take it. I've dealt with this my entire life. We all have. It's something that we learn to deal with from the moment that we understand English. But this is the challenge. When you speak out, look what happens. 1,000 comments later, the bee calling me, because I dared, I had the audacity to ask for lights. I had the audacity to ask you to move this critical, highly charged meeting to a venue that felt safer for those of us that were going to attend. How do you expect us to stand up, to speak, to come out when we know we're going to be ridiculed? I was told there's no issues in Elk Grove, no race relations issues. So what do you think that means to me, to my family who deal with this on a daily basis? You're calling us liars. You're saying we're playing the race card just by showing up as Black people. We're playing the race card. We can't speak out. So I ask you to please realize that you do not have the lenses through which to view this issue. And the same goes for the police force. This has to be something that involves people that really are walking this walk, living this day to day, not just folks that admittedly just want to help, which is important.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Next speaker, Lorene Pryor, and then Zonthi Pinkerton. Hello.
Hello, good evening. First, I want to start off with a thank you as well. I wanted to thank Chief Noblet. I sent him an email inviting some officers out to bowl with some young people. I run the Black Youth Leadership Project, and I had about 9 officers come out, and the kids had a fantastic time. So I wanted to say thank you publicly for that. However, when we're talking about the issues of racism, the problem is we as adults have failed to act. And because we failed to act, now it's trickled down to our children, and it's more pronounced. So I echo some of the comments of the previous people that came up. What are we going to do, and how are we going to involve the community in the solution? I don't believe that you guys are coming from a place where you're not genuine. However, when we have these issues coming up and they're repeatedly coming up, there's a problem. And the first thing in bringing up a problem is we have to acknowledge that it exists. Once we acknowledge it exists, then we have to put on our listening ears. I don't know why we're not holding forums for teens to come up and say what they're going through, and just sitting and listening and trying to figure out what they want to see happening. And it can't just be the school board, because it has to be an inclusive effort. So I would like to see the police department, the city council, and the school board, like you said you want to work with them. I would like to see a concerted effort with community members and these children where you sit and you listen. Because a lot of times we want to tell them what to do, but we don't listen to what they're saying. And as a youth advocate, it is important that we listen and we make the time to listen. And then from what we're hearing, we can make some solutions. We can see what we can do, how it's going to go forward. But we can't depend on this ALF report. I think that healing circles are cool. I don't want to talk about no healing circle. I don't think that's enough. There's plenty of healing circles all over this city. What are we really going to do to put some changes in statute where these kids are protected, where these residents are protected? I take it personal when my friend has to come up here time after time and tell you she's being victimized by somebody at a coin shop and nobody's went to have a conversation with him. What else has to happen to her for people to act? Does she have to be harmed? What has to happen? I'm just looking for some answers, and I'm hoping that we'll get there someday. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Anthony Pinkerton, followed by Betty Williams. Hello, Zanthi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. So I'm here on behalf of the Elk Grove Unified School District, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for the work that's already been done and for the work that will continue to move forward and move us forward as a community. That's very important. We want to make sure that our students are safe in our schools and when they go home and afterwards when they're taking part in extracurricular activities. I do want to confirm and affirm that we are holding a school board meeting on January 16th at our district offices, and there will be a dedicated amount of time for an opportunity for people to come forward to express their concerns regarding all of these issues. And a final agenda meeting will be posted on Friday.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
I have a question for you. So one of the problems we've had in the past is when we work with the school district is to be able to get a message out to the students and families. And hopefully, with your efforts and the board's efforts, we can have a better relationship to be able to get out information. Because as the last speaker had mentioned about getting together with the children, part of the problem is we have a very difficult time getting the message to them and then getting them actually to come to the events. So we're going to really need to have a strong partnership with the school district. And I know you have, what is it, the school loop? Is that the community?
We have multiple communication channels
Okay,
that
so-
we're working with.
So hopefully, and I know there's been always some restrictions and takes sometimes superintendent approval, but hopefully we can have the superintendent, the board, and yourself involved to have better communication out to the community through the school district.
Absolutely, communication is very important.
Absolutely, and I appreciate, I did see your press release you did after the incident with that was on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, and so I appreciate the quick response to that and the school district being involved. And I know the school district takes this very serious too, but we have to figure out together how to fix this.
Absolutely.
Zanthi, we do appreciate you being here, as Councilman Detrick mentioned. And I was, as a parent, I was on the chain to receive Christopher Hoffman's message, and so I was very pleased to see that. So I look forward to working with you going forward. I know you have challenges because your district is larger than our city. So, so there's, we'll get through it though. We'll get through it.
Our size isn't so much of our concern. We want to make sure our students, all of our students, have an opportunity to be able to move forward in a peaceful environment and where they can express themselves freely, have acceptance, have individuality and unity, and even if that means extending across city boundaries.
Yeah, and one more thing while I'm thinking of it. Last night, I stopped by the Youth Commission, and I requested their help in getting the word out about what we stand for, and letting them know that we will provide any tools that they need if they so choose to gather their peers for any conversations. And perhaps our Youth Commission can work with, I know the school district has your own student bodies and those types of things. Maybe we can get the kids together talking as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I think one of the things, you currently contract with the sheriff's department for your school police, and I know that there's been it was a big break for the chief to be able to negotiate with the sheriff's department and the school district to now have some of our Elk Grove Police Department officers, because that helps with the communication, cross-communication, so that's been a big item, so and hopefully we can take it a step further in those areas as well.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zanthi. Next speaker, Betty Williams. And that's the last speaker I have signed up. Hi, Betty.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am Betty Williams, president of the Greater Sacramento NAACP, and I was hoping with our partnership that I thought we had started, that the report would have at least came to the NAACP. We would have had a chance to work with you on that instead of receiving it publicly with everyone else. The other disappointment that I have, I listened to the training, you had diversity training that was given by the Elk Grove Police. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? And if so, I testified or made this remark in some previous meetings when we get complaints in the NAACP when it comes to racism or discrimination, especially when it comes within law enforcement. I always have my top 5 complaints from the different areas in law enforcement. The number 1 complaint when it comes to civil rights and discrimination comes from Elk Grove Police. Second place is Sheriff. Third place is the county jail. Fourth place is Rancho Cordova. And fifth place is SAC PD. And so when I hear that the number 1 complaint that we get in NAACP is from the Elk Grove Police when it comes to racism and discrimination, and they were responsible for the training, it troubles me.
I'm going to clarify, they've received training. Chief, you want to speak to who did your training and whether or not I'm not aware of any complaints we received from NAACP.
I heard it was train the trainer?
Oh, okay. Chief, go ahead.
As we mentioned earlier, it was a train the trainer. Our officers were trained to provide it was 2 hours of implicit bias training they provided the city staff. And while I have the microphone, if you'll allow me, Ms. Williams, with respect to the complaints that we're generating to your office, I've made multiple efforts to try to reach you, ma'am. I would hope that I'm a fairly public figure. I would just invite you at any time, if you do receive those complaints, to please contact me. I'm open to the discussion. We've never had one, and I would just like to learn a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. I've gave you my card and my email and my text, my cell. I think you have everything about me, so probably immediately after this meeting or first thing tomorrow morning, I would embrace that meeting with you, because we do need it. I have relationships with the other law enforcement, and I would love to have one with you as well.
Betty, would you copy me too? Because I would definitely like to see these complaints myself.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I would like to also go on to deal with the normal within Elk Grove, the city and the Elk Grove School District. For African American children and youth, the normal is to go to school saying the name, giving the N-word on a regular basis. That's their normal. And the normal is being afraid. The normal is this big truck that I keep hearing about with the big wheels that go after African American youth. That's the normal. We have mothers concerned about their children. That's the normal. So my challenge to you, we have to create a new normal for the African American youth that are going to the schools every day. Otherwise, you're creating a new Me Too. Me Too been discrimination by the Elk Grove Police or the school district or the environment. My concern is that the environment has become such the normal that it appears to be okay. So when the viral video came out and those young ladies felt so comfortable in saying what they said, I really almost couldn't blame them, because they came from a product from the environment they lived in. And so that environment was helped create that firestorm, which created this continued discussion. And so for me to hear from the very beginning when I came in front of you, to tell you along with others there's a problem in Elk Grove with racism, discrimination, and our African American families being attacked, to hear some of you saying these are my words, not yours, but Mayberry, and it's not. And so it's time, I think, it's time for you to listen and start to react in a different way, to start to work with NAACP and some others and have the diversity training that's more objective. Have individuals that you are partnering with in a different way, because your normal way is not working. And last but not least, the investigation when it comes to the hate crimes. I'm not sure at this point if you're taking the full time or doing it within the timely manner. in order to investigate. So by the time you get to the issues at hand, it no longer appears to be a hate crime because of the time span. But I would like to talk to you more about that, on how quickly that you react or follow up with any and all hate crimes that are coming to you, whether at the city level or at the police level. I want it to be okay. And maybe the hate crimes need to be coming to the NAACP so they can feel safe enough that somebody will say something. That's what I would like for our partnership to be better at. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Seeing no more speakers, I'm going to close public comment and ask for council deliberation and direction.
Okay,
Councilwoman Nguyen, go ahead.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I want to echo the same words that Councilmember Hume and Detrick said earlier about the young gal from Pleasant Grove and the comments that she made. So coming from somebody whose first language is Vietnamese, having a 7-year-old daughter who has a Vietnamese name and speaks the language as well too, I can identify, because she too has been made fun of for being able to speak another language, or not, having the blonde hair, blue eyes, or not looking like everybody else there. So I do understand. A couple of things that were said. One, the fact that we don't listen and we don't care and we don't believe, I will have to disagree with that, because I don't think anybody here on this dais has ever said we didn't believe or didn't think it happened, which is why we worked with the community on the town hall forums that were held. I think we are coming to the community. We are looking to the community for some help. We are looking to all of you to see what you feel would be best for our city here. The staff receiving the implicit bias training is, I believe, wasn't to give us direction on what to do next, but just to be able to have the training. I think it's up to us. And Vice Mayor soon already asking for us to have a 2x2 with the school district. I think that is a good start. This isn't something we're going to be able to resolve overnight. I think that though we want to include young people to come to these forums or meetings and giving them the ability to come out and speak in front of everybody, they're underage, so their parents also have to be able to approve of that too. So it's not just working with the young people, but it's also working with their parents. I agree with Danessa when she had said that, this is something that the young people are taking the lead on, and I hear you, I do agree with you, but I also feel like we need to, in some ways, step in there and work with the parents of these young people. But I also feel that, as you had said, the folks that were at the forums that we held were not the people that needed to be there, because they're the ones that believe that this does exist and that we need to somehow get to those people that are committing these crimes, that are scaring our young people in that big truck, right? And so, I think it's us working with you all as community members on how you think we should go about doing this. The police chief in starting the oversight or the community advisory board, I've been a part of the DA's advisory board, the sheriff's advisory board, and I can tell you that that is a really good first start. It's a great way for you as community members to get involved with our city and to bridge that gap. But again, I'm going to leave it so that my colleagues here can also chime in. But I will say that I appreciate you all coming out and sharing with you, and that I don't think anybody here is saying that we don't believe you and that we don't believe that this exists here in our community.
Well, thank you. I'm going to add something while folks might want to ponder their thoughts. I also want to say, when I first saw that video, my feelings were of shock and extreme, disappointment and sadness, because that young lady both of them were so young. And so I can only imagine, their influences of how they might have gained those perspectives. And so I wholeheartedly believe we do need to work together as a community. As Councilwoman Nguyen mentioned, it takes time, and it's going to take everyone working together. The five of us can't solve it. The chief can't solve it. None of you can solve it alone. The school district can't solve it alone. And so it's going to take all of us working together, reinforcing the message, getting out the information, reaching the people who don't feel comfortable coming out to those town halls or may not think that it applies to them. When people say that we don't have an issue here, I believe what they mean is there's the degree of severity. So I think incidents happen. I don't think this is unique to the country. I think if you look all around the country, communities are dealing with this issue, some worse than others. And so we have our fair share. But having said that, you know, I'm a big believer in continuous improvement. And so whenever things like this happen, we're taking action. We are recognizing it. The things that were listed in the staff report earlier are all a list of things that we have done to be proactive on this issue. But it's not a panacea. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take constant reinforcement, constant reaching out, disseminating the information, reaching the people who think it doesn't happen to them because maybe they didn't experience it. And, you know, lucky them if they didn't experience it, right? But, you know, we need to reach them too and find a way to get them involved and engaged even though they didn't experience it. And that's very difficult. It's the same thing about, you know, elections, getting people to come out and vote. I mean, so we've got to find a way to get folks to get engaged in our community. Not starting with us as adults, but also reaching out to our own kids, making sure our kids understand our values and making sure they're calling out their friends or peers if they're happen to be joking around and saying something that is offensive and thinking it's a joke, correcting them. These are little things, but they all add up over time. And so, you know, I have a suggestion about how I think we should move forward. Well, I might as well just throw it out right now. You know, I envision the Multicultural Committee taking a greater role, being a forum, and to build, you know, in the American Leadership Forum program, we talk about building the container. Councilman Hume is aware of this. He's been through it. Building the container to have these honest dialogues, difficult conversations without prejudging one another. And that takes trust. And I think it was Danessa that said it earlier about having the training. I am asking that the city will commit resources to provide that training, resources to support those groups, so we can have a consistent resource that people can come and utilize anytime they feel. And we'll have a support group there in the Multicultural Committee, and any attendees that want to go there to support those folks and engage with them. It's going to take work. When we started this, when we talked about bringing in the American Leadership Forum and talked about implicit bias and introducing folks to that, I said it's going to take work, not just you know, talking for a few minutes and going away. It's going to take a lot of investment in internal work, meaning mindfulness, all of us learning better to be mindful. That's everybody, right? So everybody's got to do the work. And if you know, if we're all not committed, then we won't get better. So I'm asking all of you for your help as well. We're here, we're ready to continue the work, and we're asking everyone else to stand with us and work as well. With that, I'll defer to anybody else.
Yeah, thank you. First off, I want to clarify, and unfortunately she had to go and earn a living, Ms. Wilson's characterizations of some remarks that I made. I did not say that I drive down Elk Grove Boulevard and I don't see racism. What I said is that as I've been trying to be more conscious about this and look around, is I have been noticing instances of non-racism. So I see kids of different colors walking together and laughing together, people of different races eating in the restaurants together. So I guess what I've been trying to convey is I believe in my heart of hearts that these incidences, they're not isolated, they do exist, but they're not representative of the majority of Elk Grove residents. I don't think the majority of Elk Grove residents live with hate in their heart. And maybe I'm Pollyanna about that. But I think that as has been mentioned, I've heard the speakers who spoke tonight that I simply don't have the lens to do this because my eyes don't see the stairs. My ears don't hear the mutterings, the whispers, the name callings. I don't feel the scrutiny or whatever else is cast upon people who are being prejudiced against. So my heart's in the right place. I want to do these things that we're talking about doing. I do think that coordinating some sort of joint meeting with the school district, getting the young kids, because and again, this may be naivete, may be Pollyanna, maybe rose-colored lenses, I don't know. But I believe that those kids that have learned this bad behavior, maybe in their family environment, maybe from their peer group, they can and will grow out of it and be educated that it's not the right way to be. And, but they probably need help seeing the light. And so, again, I think the ALF report, ALF being a senior fellow in the American Leadership Forum, I think they did what they could do with sort of the nebulous nature of how to bring this all together into a focused, as somebody said, panacea of how do we address these issues head on. But I think we've started the discussion. We've started taking some action steps. I'd like to see that continued.
Yeah.
I would like to see outside resources put towards it. But I also want to commend staff because I think that they were probably fairly prudent in not putting the cart before the horse and not trying to implement solutions before we had something that even offered up recommendations. I think the recommendations fall short of where I'd like to see next steps be, but I do believe that we have started taking those steps. We will continue to take those steps, and I'm on board to help, but I thank everyone for opening my eyes to the fact that I don't have the experience to even begin to scrape the surface of the solutions.
Councilman Detrick.
Thank you. Well, this is a tough subject. And, you know, I'll turn 63 this year. And I've watched this since I've been 5 years old. And I grew up in a diverse community where I was raised. And then when I moved here, I celebrated the diversity of this beautiful community. And I've never had a Pollyanna about anything that goes on in this world because there's a very, very small fraction of people that can really screw up this city, this state, this nation, and the world. And we've seen that. And I think as long as people are around, there's imperfect people. And all we can try to do is hold each one accountable. And I think a lot of this gets back to the partnership with the school district. My belief, it goes down to kindergarten. You start there. Because by the time these kids are in high school, a lot of them have already started setting their friendships, their mannerisms, and their beliefs in place. And any of you who've raised any kids through teenage, you know that they think they're smarter than their parents by the time they're 16. And obviously that young lady that was 16 years old that posted that information on Facebook and Twitter had 3 opportunities. One, to think about what she was going to do. One, to video it. And then to go ahead and post it online. I mean, that's unconscionable that she did that. And as several of the city attorneys have told me through the years, the E in electronics stands for evidence. And as was mentioned earlier, that evidence will be on the internet forever. Even if it's deleted, it's still there. And if you know how to get it, somebody will find it. And as mentioned earlier also, whether it's employers or colleges, they have the resources and ability to get that. So that you may have totally wrecked your whole life by a single act. So I think we need to really, the strongest area of support, working with the school district, one, they can mandate assemblies. And you bring in the right type of people that know how to connect with children at different age groups, who can have them start having an understanding. And it's not gonna be something that's gonna happen overnight. This has taken years and years to get to this place. So, but if you start with elementary school kid, and every year they're getting this type of training and coaching and how to intermingle with one another. Kids in general, to me, when they're very young, have very pure hearts. And it seems around middle school is when they start to recognize their differences and start to have a division. And I think as parents and as leaders, the role models we give on a day-to-day basis, how we treat one another, as Randy mentioned, I mean, indirectly, we're all neighbors. You guys are all an extension of our family. And we hurt together, we laugh together, we cry together. And, you know, as Tracy had mentioned, you know, feeling that we don't believe people. I believe people. But I think that if you look at 170,000 people, we don't have 170,000 haters in Elk Grove. Yeah, is there a percentage of them? Yes. Is one too many? Yes. Are we going to eliminate them all? I would like to hope so, but I think that's dreaming that that would ever happen. Because as long as man has been, woman has been on earth, there's been different values of how they look at life and treat people. But again, I think it's all, everybody in this room, everybody who's watching this, the media, to be able to put the message out, treat people the way you want to be treated. And if you use that in your heart, I think that that example goes a long, long way.
Thank you, Councilman Dittrich. You have something else to say?
And again, thank you all for being here, because I know this is not an easy subject to come out and talk on, and I appreciate all your input and your ideas, because we are in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to add, I have to be hopeful that regardless of any age, you know, we can change. Shari Wilson, who was here earlier, talked about a homeless woman that she took in and changed her over time, and she was at that time she was elderly and she was able to change. I know that biases can be corrected if we all work at it, and that's what I'm emphasizing, is that we don't, you know, this is just the beginning. These town halls that happened towards the end of the year, that was just the beginning, I hope, and that we can continue to have these conversations. So I'm looking for direction. I'm asking, one, that, hey, we use the Multicultural Committee leverage the existence of that, provide support through training, resources. I like Councilman Dittrich's idea about talking to the school district about mandating or asking for assemblies, and we could perhaps partner with them and, again, help supply resources for those assemblies. Tracy, Betty, you know, I'm asking you to get involved with the Diversity Audit Committee, manned or led by Councilman Wynn and Council Members Wynn and Hume. Anything else anyone want to offer up?
Well, when you mentioned the multicultural, I think that's the vehicle, but I think one of the things we have to do is we have to have a professional facilitator who specializes in this area. So I believe that's what you meant by resources.
Right.
But so people understand that what we're talking about is some professional people, not just saying, okay, multicultural, you guys are tasked with this. Saying, no, these are the items we want to go with, and this professional who deals with this day in and day out will help guide them with what opportunities and directions we could do.
Yeah, this needs to be a forum for conversation. When we first started this, folks asked for it to have a conversation, and they asked to be able to share their experiences. And I don't see that going away. I think the forum that I envision through the Multicultural Committee allows that forum to continue, that people can continue to share this experience, but also grow and learn from that, and being able by being able to engage in dialogue there. And so but we need resources to support that. I don't expect the Multicultural Committee to handle that on their own. And then again, it's getting the word out to folks, getting folks into that room. One of the shortcomings that I felt from the town halls was that, and Councilwoman Nguyen mentioned it earlier, the people that probably should have been there weren't, either because they didn't feel comfortable going or they didn't feel there was a problem. And I would just love for more folks to get engaged, because as you start to get more folks engaged, you get a critical mass going, and then that message can really start to get out there and get louder. So, Councilwoman Nguyen, anything else? Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier you wanted to start a 2x2. Can you clarify what that 2x2 would be doing?
So our normal procedures are to have 2x2s with the CSD and the school district, which is manned by the mayor and vice mayor. And as the new vice mayor, I'm asking for a 2x2 with the school district to talk about the events that had just happened recently, and then talk about or start to brainstorm some more ideas.
And hopefully to be
partner.
scheduled at the earliest convenience with everybody's schedule.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's scheduled at the earliest convenience on everybody's schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? Okay. Next item. Thank you, everybody, for being here for this item. Next item.
Take us to item 10.2, which is provide direction on whether to revise the categories for the Key to the City program.
Hi, Kara.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Kara Reddick, Deputy City Manager, and tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Key to the City. On July 26th, Councilmember Detrick requested staff return an item for discussion regarding the Key to City program in relation to the Hall of Fame program and the Mayor's Volunteer Awards. So over the next 3 slides, I want to do a highlight of each program on one slide. So this slide is about the Mayor's Volunteer Award. It was established in 2011. It includes 6 award categories. They're listed there: residents, neighborhoods, and community groups, social and community services, arts, culture, and heritage, sports and recreation, service organization groups, and under 25 years of age. The second award program is the Key to the City program. This was established in 2013. And the criteria for a nominee to qualify includes an Elk Grove resident or entity with significant accomplishments in professional or amateur sports, the entertainment industry, military service, public service, humanitarian efforts, an Elk Grove resident reaching the age of 100 years, a person who performed an act of heroism within the city limits, and or a dignitary or celebrity visiting the city. And the last program is the Hall of Fame program, which was established in 2017. The Elk Grove Community Connection hosted the inaugural event on November 1st, and their award categories include arts, education, community service, literature, science, sports, and other fields as appropriate. That's kind of their catch-all program. So I created a chart that just kind of color codes the different award categories where there are similarities, and you can see 2 categories kind of relate to the arts. All 3 categories have a public or community service component. All three categories have a sports and a recreation component, and all 3 categories kind of have some general items like entertainment, military, humanitarian, the catch-all of the Hall of Fame, which is the other, and then under 25 years of age for the Mayor's Volunteer. The areas that don't have overlap are education under the Hall of Fame, literature and science under the Hall of Fame, and then under the Key to the City, the 100-year resident, act of heroism, and dignitary or celebrity. So that's kind of a comparison of all of the programs. So staff recommends that based on overlap identified in the earlier table, to remove some categories from the Key to the City program. We are recommending to remove professional or amateur sports, entertainment industry, military service, public service, and humanitarian efforts. By removing the duplication of categories, it would eliminate multiple awards to the same recipient for the same categories from other established programs that the city already supports. So the category, if council was to remove those, the categories for the Key to the City that would remain would be 3, an Elk Grove resident reaching the age of 100 years, a person performing an act of heroism, and a dignitary or celebrity. If council chose to go this direction, we'd also recommend modifying the approval process to make it less formal, so we can be more timely and flexible. Possibly, we can have the concurrence of 2 council members with the mayor and a designee, rather than a formal council agenda item. So depending on council direction, staff will return at a future council meeting with an update to the Key to the City program, which is embedded in the council norms and procedures document. And that's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you, Kara. Any questions?
Yep. Kara, could you pull up your Exhibit A again?
Yeah.
So if you eliminated the humanitarian, the military, the entertainment, and professional amateur sports from the Key to the City, I can see where you have the Hall of Fame and the Mayor's Awards for the sports, but what was your proposal with the other 3? Just eliminate them altogether?
With these 3 right here that are non-colored?
No, the 3 on the bottom that you talked about eliminating. Isn't those the ones you mentioned to eliminate?
Yeah, from the Key to the City program, as the Hall of Fame program has a kind of a catch-all category that they kind of call other. I'll give you an example related to military service. So we have designated giving a key to the city to somebody for their military service, and that same person received a Hall of Fame award. So that person will have gotten both awards in a span of 4 months. So there's that kind of duplication because they kind of have this general catch-all.
Okay. I think it's great that you brought this back because, since this has evolved from the original Mayor's Volunteer Key to the City Hall of Fame, it's kind of morphed into the overlap, which is, I think, kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, and it devalues the Key to the City. So, I think it puts it more aligned where I believe it should be. So I think your recommendations are good.
Any other questions for Kara? Okay, thank you, Kara. This time, I want to open up for public comment, and I see Randy Becker signed up. That's the only speaker I have signed up at this time.
I just have clarification because I don't know the difference. But one thing that concerns me, and make sure that we don't lose this for anybody being dropped off. You take someone like Kyle Larson. He is phenomenal. And not only that, I'm not sure if some of you know that this last winter, and I didn't know it till after it viewed, he was in town with a number of NASCAR people, and there was a segment on TV, and it showed downtown Elk Grove on national TV. Pretty clean, pretty nice. They had dinner at the Gardens. And it was, so along with that, our military, I just don't want us to lose sight because someone getting the key to the city may be something that they've done away from the city, but also promoted the city. So, if that's in another category, then that'd be okay. But I just don't want to lose sight of those phenomenal people that promote our city outside of actually continue living in our city.
Randy, that's where they moved it over to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Is where that, so the Hall of Fame just awarded Bill Cartwright.
Okay.
And it had, there were I believe 5 or 6 people who received the award, and Mariel Tsukamoto was one of them. I mean, it
Elizabeth
was a.
Pinkerton,
I just don't
Jerry
want,
Wolf.
I just don't want us to lose sight of
It
that,
was,
that's
it-
all.
yeah,
Not
Elizabeth Pinkerton,
understanding.
it was a very it was a very prestigious
Yeah.
event.
Okay.
We agree, Randy, as Councilman Detrick said, there's overlap right now, so we're trying to
And,
figure out.
and that's fine. Like I said, I'm not,
As mentioned, there's a couple people that got both.
Yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, that's.
No, I'm not saying they should. I just want to make sure that when we're doing something like that, we don't miss sight of it, that's all. Because I'm not aware of all the stuff that's going on.
No, great points, Randy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I see no further public comments. I'll close public comment and ask for council deliberation and direction. And I think Councilman Detrick offered up.
Yeah,
a point right there.
Kara, great job with the research on everything and the way, what this is morphed into. I think your recommendation is perfect.
Councilman Hume.
I appreciate the work put into it and the distillation of the key to the city. However, I don't support stripping the military service. I think military service could encompass an act of heroism outside the city limits of Elk Grove that ought to be recognized at the highest possible level. And if that means that they get 2 awards from 2 different ceremonies, well, so be it.
Could military service be classified, I mean, you mentioned act of heroism, so.
No, because the act of heroism calls out that it's happened while in the city limits.
Oh, right. Or we could take away act of heroism for, the city limits for the act of heroism. Act of heroism.
I'd rather just leave military service if it's all the same.
Okay.
I mean, if I don't have
I'm just trying to
council concurrence, I
simplify.
don't have council concurrence. That's a very near and dear subject to my heart, and I'm not going to let it go quietly.
Understood. Councilwoman Nguyen?
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well, too. When I first came on and I saw all of these, I felt like the key to the city and the mayor's volunteer are pretty much the same because they're coming from the city, whereas the Hall of Fame is not coming from the city, is my understanding. It's coming from a completely different entity that the city does support. But I do see where, and I don't think it's not a bad thing if you don't get awards from all 3 areas, right? But I could see where there's some redundancy here, so I'm fine with the recommendation, but also leaving military service on there too, having a brother that serves in the Army.
Okay, I'll be fine with that as well, so are you okay with that?
I'd be okay with that. I think that, maybe to your point, there may be some other opportunities that don't fit inside the box that we see, and we come as a council, say, you know what? We didn't think of this at the time, but this is something we believe should be a key to the city. And I think we could, I'm okay putting the military as long as it's something out of the ordinary. Because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people probably from Elk Grove that are in the military, so I wouldn't want somebody to think it's, you serve in the military, you get a key to the city.
No, and I think so far we've done a pretty good job of finding ways to honor all of our servicemen and women, but we've held the key to the city out for someone with significant either career accomplishment or,
I
individual.
think both of them were generals, I think, that
I
we
think
gave
they
to,
were,
so.
yeah.
Yep. But, we could add a phrase, or as directed by the city council, if you want to do a catch-all, not knowing what lies ahead. That would encompass military service or anything else for that matter.
Can
Yeah,
we just change the act of heroism, whatever that's listed as, and add in, includes military service that has, individual that has served our country but has, I don't see where the definition is here for the.
Well, that's what I suggested, but Councilman, you mentioned that it's only, active heroism is only within the limits of the city.
But can we change that? Can we?
We
change
could,
that?
but I don't think that would accomplish my goal because
Right.
I think the act of heroism or something that say befalls being awarded a medal in the military, that would be one item. But also the 2 that we have given the key to have been generals with significant command experience. And that also is worthy of recognition in my book.
So adding in Councilman Detrick's earlier comment as well, there could be something else that comes up we could add a blanket statement that allows us the flexibility to issue the key of the city if the council so chose. That would allow for military service, that would allow for yeah, we could do that, or we could add military service in there specifically and that last statement.
Okay, so if you guys want to do something different, that's fine. I am hanging my hat on a line
Military
item
service.
for military service.
Yeah.
If we want to have a catch-all in addition to that, great.
Right, I am with you, I'm leaving military service. And then, but do you want to add a catch-all? Do you guys want to add a catch-all that'll
Want to have
give us
it,
the
I think,
flexibility?
rather than have it, so everything has to fit in the box, that if there is something that we are not aware of that comes up, that would come before us as an item for review, and wouldn't have to say it doesn't fit into, so basically, Kara or whoever it is who receives this, looks at it, goes, oh, doesn't fit into the box, it's rejected. If something comes up that is out of the ordinary, that Kara could take it, and then it becomes something that's brought to council for review.
Right.
I think we could certainly do that. I would just like to clarify that we do want to deformalize the process a little bit, so the mayor and a designee would look at the applications, because if we do have a celebrity or a dignitary visiting the city, there might, it might be short notice. So would you want the out-of-the-ordinary item that comes up that we think maybe is key-worthy to come to the full council, or could that come to this smaller group of the mayor and a council member?
I think it'd be better if there's time, that it comes to the full council. John, is there a way that in a scenario like that, a question could be sent to all 5 council members and we separately respond to that?
No, you'd be taking action under the Brown Act that wouldn't be
Okay.
allowed without a meeting.
Okay.
I like
You
your
could,
idea.
you could have a special meeting on 24 hours' notice, but that could be cumbersome, I don't know, depending on your schedules.
One is how often is the urgency to have it done?
Exactly.
In less than 2 weeks?
Yeah. Councilwoman Nguyen?
I was just saying, we put this exhibit together and we put these criterias together for a reason. If we open it up for special situations or occasions, then we deviate from what this is. And I understand your point in which but that's subjective. Something I could see as really important may not be as important to all of you on somebody I think that deserves a key to the city. I think when we put a criteria here, I really feel like we should follow the criteria.
Well, I think having it come back to the council, if it's unique like that, you have to do that because, first of all, I don't think the risk of having something unique very often is going to happen, because if that does happen, then it's no longer unique, and we should probably include it in. So I think if we could add that blanket statement, but it needs to come back to the council. And then in terms of, a celebrity coming to town, for instance, as Randy mentioned, Kyle Larson was here. If he didn't already get a key and we wanted to do something while he was in town, I would suggest then the mayor and vice mayor, similar to the 2x2s that we've done. That would be the short notice thing for celebrities.
That's fine.
I'm good.
Okay. So we're going to add military service and a general statement, but the general statement that needs to come back to council. And then mayor and vice mayor.
Sounds good. We'll return with an update to the norms and procedures document.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Take us to item 10.3, which is to receive information, provide direction on naming and branding concepts for the Civic Center project.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Did you bring your branding iron?
Well, Einstein said that creativity is intelligence having fun, and this is a creative item. So I want you guys to have fun with this, all right? So I have the opportunity to present for you tonight. And by the way, I forgot to say it. Kristen Nelson, City Public Affairs Manager. I'm introducing the naming and branding concepts for the Civic Center project. And as you know, that's a project that's been a long time in development. And Development Services and Public Works are in the process of working very hard to make that a reality. A little bit about the project, just for the general audience information. It's a project that encompasses 76 total acres. Currently, 56 acres of that are in the process of some form of development. Our Phase 1 amenities are currently under construction, so there is some sense of urgency to arrive at what we're going to call this place. But the Phase 1 includes the Aquatic Center, an outdoor commons event space, and the Community Center, two of those which are expected to open in May 2018. That's what we're aiming for. All of the features there are including lifestyle amenities, and there are no longer any government offices proposed as a part of the footprint for this project. So compared to some other projects where the Civic Center is your traditional government offices space, that's really not the case with this space. It's intended to be a place to gather and make memories for our community and for visitors. So what's in a name? The name used is intended to establish a personality for the space, to generate a first impression before you ever step foot on the property, and to distinguish it from similar amenities elsewhere. We do want to be competitive with other properties in the region to attract tournaments and events and other activities and users for the main hall. And it's intended to support marketing efforts to that effect. There are some relevant trends that are going on both in the region and throughout the country, where civic spaces are naming themselves and their spaces in a non-governmental, non-institutional way that can engage the public and people's imagination. So just an example of that, this particular visual is of the barn in West Sacramento. If you haven't gone out to visit that space, I'd encourage you to do so. They're doing all sorts of cool events out there. There's also the Quarry, the Fountains, which is a shopping center, the rail yards, and most recently, our neighbors to the north have branded DOCO for Downtown Commons. So whatever name you choose, it will become institutionalized and it will be adopted by the public over time. So just like we've seen with some of the other event spaces, Arco Arena, a lot of us still called it that for a really long time, no matter how many sponsors had changed hands. The first name that comes through is usually the one that sticks. So we're hoping that tonight you'll give us some direction on the name that will stick and endure. So the approach that we took on this particular branding naming project is we enlisted some help from some really creative people, folks that have done this for other clients and served a variety of industries. So I do want to introduce some people that are in the audience tonight. We do have Debbie Augustine and Amy Wilson with Augustine that are here with us, as well as Scott and Lucy Crocker with Crocker & Crocker. So these folks have been very helpful in the options that you're going to see tonight. We also sought some in-house perspectives from the folks in development services, from economic development, and some folks from tourism, marketing, and design. And they all looked at these different options through different lenses, right? So they want to know what's going to attract people, how will that work in terms of attracting new businesses, that sort of thing. So we thought that that particular audience was very important. Also important is our community. And we did, despite some tough time frames, we did attempt to coordinate a couple of focus groups we hosted in late December. And we did get some information and feedback from some of the members of the public. We attempted to secure a cross-section of individuals that represented all different backgrounds, both Elk Grove residents and non-residents. And so the options that we're presenting to you tonight are based on a lot of research and analysis from a lot of different people. So just to kind of get right to it, I'm going to give you the three options that we're looking at, and I'm also going to show you then there's a logo option that's presented with each of them. It is intended to be kind of just a general visualization for what it might be. There's certainly room for tweaking in all of these, so please keep an open mind with that as you're presented the options. But to move forward, option one is, of course, the Elk Grove Civic Center. This has been the conventional working name for the project as it's moved forward. A lot of people have been very accustomed to referring to it that way, but as I stated before, there's really no government offices planned for the property anymore. It doesn't really serve the civic center function that a lot of people would consider in other places that, you know, that's not where you're going to go do your government business per se. It's where you're going to go and have fun. So this particular option didn't have a logo per se. It was presented in typeset in the signage package. It was intended to accompany the city brand, but a logo could be developed if you wanted to use this option. And the next illustration is what was provided in the previous signage package. So it was a typeset, kind of a modern feel, but that was the Elk Grove Civic Center. So the next option for you is called Center Point, and there is a logo that's presented there that offers a lot of color. It does go with a four-letter acronym, if you will, but it also ties in all of these. Our project is centrally located. It's in the middle of town, essentially, and I'm just going to read so that everybody kind of gets the idea for what this concept represents. So, Center Point is a destination that will define Elk Grove with a personality and sense of place. It will be a catalyst for Elk Grove's evolution. More than a civic center, it's an experience. Blending the elements of community, nature, tradition, and recreation, get you your CNTR, that resonate within the Elk Grove community. It's a place that will unite the city. With something for everyone, Center Point is a place where state-of-the-art facilities and picturesque landscapes provide the ultimate backdrop for celebrations, traditions, and memories. And the tagline that the author introduced was, "Gather around the center." So option number 2, you'll see the logo that's presented there with the colors. There are some pieces within that. If you look real close, you'll see a heart, a leaf. The one highlighting the T is intended to be a thumbprint or fingerprint to represent personalized experiences, and the blue represents a water drop for recreation. This is how it might look on monument signs at the site, just to give you that sense. And the next option presented to you is the option of the Pendulum or Pendulum Park. This is up for discussion on how you'd like to use it. But the pendulum is an iconic tool with all types of uses. The pendulum aligns with many one-word destinations that are common today. We mentioned a few of those just a minute ago. The pendulum comes in various designs and configurations. They're used in music, art, and science. At rest, a pendulum has reached equilibrium, a balance. For Elk Grove Civic Center area, that's a balance between old and new, young and old, women and men, and residents and visitors. It will be the focal point for Elk Grove. The pendulum offers opportunities for architectural and design elements and configurations at the complex. It differentiates Elk Grove from other city civic centers, creating a distinctive and memorable brand. And as you can see there in the top right, there is a visualization and possible logo for the pendulum. And if you have seen a lot of desks, you'll see the balls that you can pull one and it transfers energy to the rest. And the author of this particular option had indicated that the orange dot would represent the city, transferring its energy and ownership and excitement into the other audiences that will visit this location. And this is how the pendulum might be transferred onto monument signage. This particular option did not come with a tagline yet, but it's certainly one that could be developed. So these are still options in rough stages that could be polished for sure. So tonight we're requesting the council to have a discussion and provide the staff with some direction to select from the options that are presented here, or to direct staff regarding some variations of these concepts or other options. And our colleagues at Augustine and Crocker are here, and they can answer additional questions if you have them about the concepts. But we're hoping to hear something from you tonight.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Any questions? No? Okay. I'd open for public comment, but I see no one signed up to speak, so I will close public comment and council deliberate. Okay, Mike, you want him to sign up, or are we good? Okay, Michael Manaski, come on up.
I didn't realize that we contracted with somebody to name, in addition to having a PIO who's doing the presentation. How much did we pay for the contract for this report and for the contract for Crocker to figure out a name for the Elk Grove Civic Center?
Do we have a answer for Mike?
50 cents?
We can get back. We can get you an answer.
50,000?
I don't. It doesn't pair that staff has it right now. We'll get it to you though. You want to
Yeah.
go ahead with your comment?
Well, I find it ludicrous. What?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to coordinate stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were trying to answer.
No, actually, I'm trying to get an answer to your question.
Oh, okay, good, good. Thank you, thank you. I think it's ludicrous that we would come up with such bizarre names like pendulum and a misspelled word with no with no vowels. I mean, every time I go downtown and I see Doco, I think to myself, what is this gonna be made into, you know? And it's not a commons. Doco is supposed to be the downtown commons at the arena, and it's to me it's a joke. I mean, it's ridiculous. And all this interest in branding, I understand that, you know, you have marketing issues and the city wants to put its best foot forward, but God, do we really have to spend money on this and all this time? I mean, I'm here to talk about flooding and $1 million being spent on that, you know, and $150 million down the road. So let's get our priorities straight here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
I think there's another.
Any other speaker? Oh, is that Liz Irons? Come on up.
I believe that you were looking for an answer on the expenditures. I just wanted to provide that. So the current work to date, we're looking at approximately $38,000 that has been expended on
For
this
everything? Okay. Oh, hi, Aaron, sorry.
Hi, good evening, that's
Yeah.
okay. Good evening, I just wanted to weigh in. I think, just because I just saw them like you did, and I'm a PR professional, I commend the effort to find a great name and something that's contemporary and whatnot. I personally, as a citizen, didn't like the options, but particularly not the pendulum one, so I just wanted to say that. But I think also that, you know, I just was wondering, did anyone look into anything to bring some of the history of the city alive in it, or to have any thematic, with our rich history, it might be something to be considered. It's one thing to look for really something compelling and driving towards the city center. I like the thought. But I think that we could maybe do a little bit better with a little more time. I don't know how much time you've invested, I'm sorry, but it just struck me from a PR professional perspective, as well as a citizen, that we might, and we don't want to take forever. I know time is of the essence and there's money, but I do agree with the no Val. I know it's edgy, but I just thought I would give my opinion since I'm sitting here tonight. I think we could maybe look at something that might have real meaning for us as a community in a name, and find an edgy draw and some historic foundation as well. Something to consider. Thanks.
As a PR person, you understand how difficult this process can be.
I do, and I've led public input processes, and I know it's really challenging, and sometimes you have to make a decision and go with it, but 3 options is, you know, I don't know if you've seen more and you've winnowed it down. Fair enough,
Yeah.
if that's been the process already. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Maybe we can have Crocker and Crocker and Augustine talk about what kind of went into the thought process to answer your question, Erin, about the history of Elk Grove and how that factored into the naming. Maybe we start with Crocker and Crocker, then we'll go to Debbie. Hi, Scott.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and council members. I'm Scott Crocker with Crocker and Crocker. We did participate in the process of developing one of the names, so that name was the Pendulum. We created about a dozen different names involving historical references, contemporary names, and determined with staff involvement that the Pendulum was the strongest name to differentiate this center from anything else within the region. It provides some excitement, enthusiasm, while some believe branding is somewhat of a trite exercise. It does have impact, it creates value, and does create success for products, services, organizations, companies. So we do take that seriously. As Debbie would agree that there's a lot of best practices that go into this. However, the general nature of the branding is subjective. And there are those that look at colors, design, or names and find them to be either you like it or you don't, or some find it falls within the middle. As both Debbie and I would also probably agree that we're looking for something that is representative of the project, that tells a story, of which I think both do in different ways. The Pendulum obviously is an iconic element of art and science and music and engineering and some of those traits that as a community you want to embrace and something you want to pass along to kids. I think it has legs in developing architectural and design elements at the facility itself. And those balls, that is Newton's cradle, does have a physics theory behind it that I think presents a nice design element. And what we want is something that Elk Grove can take pride in and that will attract attention, not only in this community, but throughout the region, which I think it would do. So if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Scott? No? Great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate the explanation. Hello.
So loud, I don't even need this. So in terms of the center point, hello everyone and honorable people that you are.
State your name for us, Debbie.
Deborah Augustine with Augustine. So we did look at history of that particular property. We did quite a bit of research and felt like we wanted to do something that really came forward, that this was the next level for Elk Grove, something that the city could be very proud of and definitely have that sense of place. And one of the things that we do feel like we are fairly good experts at are creating that sense of place and creating destinations. And it's such a great story to tell. So the idea behind it, Center Point, representing culture, nature, tradition, and recreation, we felt really encompassed everything that this particular project was going to be able to offer and entail. And then by creating the tagline of Gather Around, it really has that call to action of an invitation to come and a place to be. The colors in the logo do represent diversity, which has obviously been a big topic of tonight, and as well as the 4 pillars that we've identified that this particular place would represent. So, any questions?
Any questions for Deborah? No? Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Appreciate both your participations in this. Thank you. Okay. We're going to come back. Council deliberation and direction. Any thoughts? Councilman Hume.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off. Einstein may have thought that creativity is intelligence having fun, but it's a real pain in my neck right now. I wish that there were one of these that just really blew my hair back, or one of these that I could just say, throw that out in the trash, it's no good, it'll never work. And I get that creativity and branding and all of the hard work that's gone into this, and I do believe it was hard work, is terribly subjective. However, I got to agree, I think, with what Aaron said. I don't think this cake is fully baked yet. And the reason being is because of the two focus groups that we had. One focus group went this way and one focus group went that way, and they didn't even have the third option. So I don't feel that sitting up here, I'm going to put something, on the street, literally, that I'm hoping to have a shelf life of beyond. I mean, I don't even know how long you'd want to put on it, but, Soho and Soma and these places that were created out of their relationship to someplace, south of Houston or south of Market, those names just kind of came organically, but they stuck. And I think if we put the wrong name down here, it could potentially work against what we're trying to do and make what is sure to be a great gathering place someplace clunky. And so I know our economic development director is sitting in the audience, and he's kind of has some ideas about how this gets implemented in the next phases of things, and that the whole district really spreads and is known by one of these names. And I don't know that how well either one of these names is transferable beyond sort of the more governmental civic use on the property, but then Civic Center is not at all. You would not call a retail center the shops at Civic Center when it's 3 blocks away from the Civic Center. So I don't know what I would like next steps to be. I think there needs to be a little more public engagement, dipping our toe in the pool to see what people really, what they want to call their Civic Center or their community gathering place and associated retail and services and such. I wish I could sit up here and say one of you did a great job or one of you did a horrible job, or that staff had it right all along and it should just be this clunky name. I can't say any of those things. So I'm ill-prepared to foist my opinion on the community.
Fair enough. Thank you, Councilman Hume. Any other comments? Councilman Detrick?
Well, for the record, Councilman Hume, it won't blow my hair back. I think I told both parties that what I was looking for would be timeless, simple, and elegant. And if I had to pick one out of the two, I'd probably lean towards Pendulum. But I have to agree with Councilman Hume. It doesn't say wow, or it doesn't grab me. Not sure. We have only seen these 3, so I don't know what the others, if Crocker had a dozen, and if Debbie had a dozen, I mean, whatever those were. And I think to Ms. Iron's point, that I had a conversation with one of my sons who is involved with national sales and marketing. And when I told him, at least the first example, he was he goes, well, how many options did you see? I said, 1. He goes, well, that's kind of interesting. He goes, I wonder how many they drew from. He goes, I would expect they'd probably at least have 50 to 100 names that they're throwing around, that it finally trickles to the top. I've kind of looked at maybe more of the history side. I mean, I don't know if you could, Elk Grove Boulevard used to be a stagecoach stop. And I know that, you got the barn. I don't know, you could have the stagecoach. I'm just shooting off the top of my head. And I'm not criticizing. You guys are excellent what you do. And this, again, is subjective as heck. I don't know what the answer is, but it isn't something that is totally blown away with something that is a name and a feeling and a destination of something that I envision going to. The barn is a place.
It looks nothing like a barn, by the way.
It doesn't. I agree.
Artistically.
Yeah, you're right. But the name stuck, and you say the barn, everybody knows where it is.
Yeah.
And I had conversation with both teams. There's certain things I've been in Sacramento now half my life. My other half was in the Bay Area. But when somebody says, we're going to the city, we're going to San Francisco. And there's certain things that you have to have, and it's very tough. is I told both these folks that any name you pick, that's gonna be the name. But is this the best that we can do? I don't think so. And I know that time is of the essence for the Aquatic Center, but you know what? If we gotta wait to put the name up, I'd rather do that and have it once and have it done right. And to elaborate on what Councilman Hume said, I look at this business district from the Auto Mall to Bruceville, potentially. So if that whole district along there is gonna be called that, that's way more than just our 76 acres, where I know it started at, with that's being the original Civic Center land. So I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think we have the answer tonight.
Check that.
Right, so neither one excited me in jumping out and feeling good about it. I get to drive down Bruceville every day, and I couldn't find myself being excited about any one of those names. And I've shared with both of you before, Centerpoint, I felt like I like acronyms, but I feel like unless you are there to explain what the acronym means, you miss the entire point of it. It's got a community soft feel to it. The Pendulum is a little bit tough for me to say. English is my second language, and saying it is really tough. And I can imagine that other community members as well, or folks, would have a hard time being able to say that. And so they're two different. I mean, one, you've got more of a soft community feel. The other one's more edgy, more futuristic. And they're both great concepts. But I agree with my colleagues is that there just wasn't one that I was really excited about and felt good about making a decision on either one of those.
Well, I think the feeling is unanimous then. Nothing that actually grabbed me either, but I do recognize the intent for both to, try to be transformational, I felt, and that's something that I was looking for. I felt like, whatever this name would be, would signify, a type of transformation for the city. So it could have a reflection of a historical element, but it's got to me, it had to indicate progress or change. One of the, and actually, Councilman Hume, when you mentioned district, that kind of stuck with me as well. Something about district, but I don't know. I can't tease that out just yet. But on the slide that was presented, I took note of the name was supposed to make impressions and create define a place where memories are created, and so that's, I wonder. I didn't get the sense of that from either of the two names. So maybe that's something that we can continue to look at. So it sounds like, can we keep going or keep brainstorming on this? Is it worth sending I asked my colleagues, is it worth sending a survey out, posting the complex on the website and asking people to name it? Is that a naming contest, so to speak?
Well, it's interesting you had mentioned that. One of the things I had commented to the team about earlier is, and not to discount you guys at all, but I know that there's been, I believe it's websites that put on contests in specific fields. And you have a lot of college kids all the way up through professionals who would do a name and design and branding, and then if they're selected, then they're awarded a payment for that effort. And that could be broadcast worldwide. But that gets back to, timing, how long are we gonna take to do this, and.
Yeah, I like actually having somebody, maybe even a youth from the community, from one of the schools in our city, work on submitting some names and then picking from that, right? It gives it some history that it's somebody from our city, a young person from our city.
Somebody should ask Elizabeth Pinkerton to come up with a name. Yeah, she's got more history than anybody else in this city.
We had her engaged in the focus groups as well.
Okay.
So what do you want to do? Want to go back to the drawing board? Want to do Crocker and Crocker and Augustine, or let's do a, do we have time to do a contest?
I think a contest is going to be awfully cumbersome. We kind
That's
of
what I
need
was
to
wondering,
pull the
too.
trigger and get a direction going here. But Kristen, you obviously went through both focus groups. There was not consensus amongst them. Did you feel like that there was some light at the end of the tunnel as far as building a consensus? Would a third option have gone over well? If we didn't present to them an either-or scenario, do you think they might have more organically come forward with some ideas that then the professionals can run with?
I think there were very different philosophies within the focus groups, and some were much more traditional. There were a couple that had more modern thinking, forward marketing, and with some marketing experience. So I don't know that even the third option it might have muddied the waters even a bit more. So narrowing it down to the two was helpful to kind of know the pulse of the focus groups. I believe, from our management, I've heard it's more important to do it right than to do it quickly in this case. We want you guys to be happy with the name that is chosen. We want the community to be happy with it. So I think we'll, go back to the drawing board and see what we can bring back.
Kristen, relative to the focus groups, correct me if I'm wrong, in one of the focus groups, wasn't there somebody who was a very strong personality who turned a lot of the people?
Our first focus group had a representative, ironically enough, from the Historical Society, who was very supportive of the center point concept, which was the more modern of the two that were presented to them, and saw, the momentum and what we were trying to do with the name, that we do want this to have, connection with who we are and where we've come from, but by the same token, also try to generate that bright future, if you will, with the project and kind of a new evolution for the city. So that person did reflect some of that and share some of that with the group, and people got it, and they kind of turned around and they understood the logic. And I don't know if they would have gone with another option if a third option was presented in that case. They had in that focus group Center Point or Civic Center to choose from, and then they all turned to Center Point by the conclusion of the focus group.
Yeah, the only thing that troubles me is Councilwoman Nguyen had mentioned if you have to go into detail to explain something, 99% of the people are not gonna, they're not gonna research it. They're not gonna, it's just gonna be is what it is, in my opinion. I mean, it's like we talked about people getting out to vote. 95% of the people probably in Elk Grove couldn't tell you who your 5 council members are. Lucky if they could tell you who one of the council members are. So people, if it just isn't there for them and readily available, I think it needs to be super, super simple.
Pendulum is not simple for this.
Yeah. So, Kristen, what does going back to the drawing board look like for you? Or what, I guess, do you need any additional direction from us?
What I'm hearing from you is that the two options presented tonight are not going to be considered moving forward. And so we do need to come up with new alternatives, that we need to continue and increase our public engagement and see what we can provide you. I don't have a timetable on that, and I want to connect with some of the other staff.
So, and let us try to narrow it for you. I mean, so just to give these guys an idea, I mean, for me, I was still looking for, I mean, the transformational thing is okay, but I'm still looking for that sense of place. You know, when you mentioned the barn, that was a sense of place. The fountains was a sense of place. I didn't get the sense of place out of Pendulum. Center Point I kind of did, so I do want to add that Center Point to me, you know, as I pondered it more, it wasn't distinctive enough for me because there's a lot of points around, I felt like. So that I guess that was more my issue with Center Point. So I guess I'll ask my colleagues if we could try to say what didn't do it for us on, with the names so they can try to give direction to.
I think, it's pretty much what you said. One is feeling it's a destination where you're going. It's like you go, I'm going to this place, and you feel and visualize this place. I know that it's not unique because there's one in Southern California, but the Grove I've mentioned, you go to the Grove, you think of, there's to me a mental feeling you have when you hear a name and how that's going to grab you to continue.
Right. Spectrum, right? The Block, 3rd Street Promenade. Okay.
May I only be a little bit bold here to say that those names stuck over time. They may not have been well received rolling out initially, but they were adopted and embraced over time, so now you know them to be what they are. So any name might be foreign or feel odd to start with until you have a chance to live with it.
I would like to add, echo what Kristen's saying, is that places like the Barn, maybe you think back to when you first heard the name The Barn, but then when you went there, you got that sense of place and you felt the feeling that they created when you got there. So sometimes getting that sense of place, you have to go there to feel it. And since, we're still under construction here, maybe it's a little bit difficult to have that feeling with a name because we can't walk around and feel the air of the area. So just as a thought.
Interesting.
So to back to your point, Vice Mayor, I guess for me, when you talk about the barn, it's referring to the actual space. That is the barn. You're going to the barn. Whereas the pendulum is an object that's trying to evoke a feeling about a space. And so I don't know that the connect is necessarily there. I actually like CNTR a lot, but unlike Soma or Soho, it feels manufactured and you have to explain it to somebody. Why'd you take the E's out of center? And so I don't care for the point as much, but I like the CNTR. But again, I just feel that this is something that people are gonna have to want to refer to it when they say, hey, I'm going to, or meet me at. And it's gotta have, to Daryl's point, it has to have some applicability and some versatility to, if you're going to the aquatic center, that's a whole different reason and a whole different reference than if you're going to the lifestyle center out on the boulevard, or if you're going to a concert in the community center. So I think you do have to have that sense of space. You got to feel what that area is a little bit. And I don't know that it is a grove, but I think if it had some reference to, that ties it to Elk Grove. I mean, unfortunately, the Boulevard and EG don't lend themselves to coming up with that. Darren kind of keyed on district, either you could come up with, there's a movie, District 9 or whatever.
That's what I was thinking
It doesn't
of.
have
That's what I was
any
thinking of.
correlation, but again, it would be something that would become a colloquialism for the.
916?
Yeah.
Yeah, that did cross my mind. Well, yeah, and as we're talking here, when you, I was thinking Center Point, but if you just called it CNTR, it would invoke why, and then it gets into the explanation of it, and eventually it would probably just be known as Center, to Kristen and Kara's point.
So if I had to pick between the two, obviously I would say Center Point.
So we're all over the map.
I would probably say just Center, then.
Yeah, Center's fine, but keep in mind, there are other centers here in our region. There's the Lambda Center, there's the Service Center, that's just what I work with right now.
It's not distinctive.
Right, but the spelling is, right? The
Yeah.
spelling distinguishes it from all the other centers.
Yeah, you said,
So-
darn Elk Grove people can't even spell.
We had to save some money on some E's, The budget got tight.
Couldn't get a vowel.
Yeah.
But the acronym is a new way to do things.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is I like the thought behind both names, I just don't like the end product as much as I would need to in order to, put that onto the community for the
Well,
next
and I
century.
agree that, when, like SoCal, right? I mean, there's a meaning to that. I mean, if you don't have to, well, what does that mean? Well, as soon as you hear it, you know what it means.
Over time, though, is to,
No, I mean, SoCal, you know, it's it's abbreviation for Southern and for California. It's not, you don't have to think about it. It wasn't over time. It's over time maybe that came about,
yeah.
but to think about those acronyms is not something you look at and well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Okay, well, let me do this. Is there a willingness, given, input we received, and we're asking Kristen to go back out anyway, is there a willingness to let center, and if you want to include pendulum, let's let it percolate, and it still can be brought back with anything new?
Would you like us to introduce an option of the center, the CNTR?
Nope, because there's too many of the centers already. Okay, so and then CNTR?
Yes.
CNTR.
And
Which, again, would go back, I keep referring back to Daryl, but, if he's going to have the lifestyle center, that would be the shops at the center.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it could also be the shops at CNTR.
That's what I was, when you said center, I'm thinking CNTR.
But see, it has to be one or the other, because you would never say the shops at center.
Yeah.
Well, you would say CNTR, but you would just.
I'm going to move the 10 o'clock rule on this item.
So how about we just let it stew with us for a bit,
It'd be really interesting, take both focus groups, split them in half, and mix them.
we could put this out to a social media poll if you'd like.
Well, but that's coming back with the same items, right? That's not anything new.
It could be part of our public engagement if you wanted us to try and introduce this concept to see if it has merit with the community, either of these two options. And we could report back the results, and you could give us additional direction from there.
In Councilman Hume, your comment about the boulevard, that's been one that has been talked about as well, because you could say, you get the bakery at the boulevard, you got Boulevard Bistro already, you can tie in the boulevard is another option for, that could be the name of the district, the Boulevard District, and you just, you refer to it as the boulevard. I don't know, I'm trying to look at something that, at least that gives me a feeling of.
Yeah. Well, I don't anticipate we're going to decide tonight, because the same thing's got to happen, is we got to be able to marry that name to the place, and we're not linking it. So let's let Kristen, you could try the poll. I get the feeling it's going to be split anyway, like everything else, and we're still going to be making a decision. So, but it'd be input for us, and then let's think about incorporating, a boulevard district or something that defines, that's a little more concrete, and then I say we let CNTR, and then might as well let pendulum, let's just let it percolate and then bring it back.
So do you want respondents to provide their ideas of a name, or do you want to just stick with what we've got? Because I think people are going to offer it anyway.
Sure, let's see what they offer.
or other.
You guys good at that?
And give you
A, B, or?
Or write in.
A, B, C, D?
Or like on Facebook, they can put in their ideas in the comments.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say you post that complex, the picture, the aerial view of it, or, the concept view, and then it's got to be all of it though, right? They got to see the aquatic center and everything else in the commons area and stuff, so. Okay, is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I apologize.
What's in a name? Go ahead.
I got to take off, I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Detrick. See you. Next item, please.
Take us to item 10.4 to receive a presentation regarding Laguna West Levee System Problem Identification Report and provide direction as appropriate.
Brian.
Hey, how's it going? Okay. Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members.
evening.
Brian Fraggio, Engineering Services Division. Back in February, staff provided City Council with information on Senate Bill 5 and the 200-year floodplain process, regional improvements that have the potential to lower the 200-year base flood elevation along the west border of Elk Grove, and work being conducted by MBK engineers to prepare a problem identification report to determine if the Laguna West levees comply with the freeboard requirements of FEMA and the California Department of Water Resources urban levee design criteria. Don True, Rick Reinhardt, and Nancy Moritz from MBK are here to present their findings and to provide information on where we go from here. Nancy will be given the report.
Good evening.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm Nancy Moritz with MBK Engineers. And as Brian mentioned to you, I'll be taking you through the problem identification report that we came up with. The city adopted changes to a general plan in July of 2016 per California Senate Bills 5 and 1278. With an Sorry, I'm a little shorter than Brian. Let me move a little closer. Is that better for you?
Sure.
You're welcome. They did so with an amendment to the safety element of the general plan to prohibit approval of a building permit, entitlement, or parcel map within the 200-year floodplain unless it provides an urban level of protection. An amendment to the Elk Grove Municipal Code, Section 234240, to include both 100 and 200-year floodplains and to identify required development standards. The addition of the Elk Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 1615 for flood damage prevention as well. Excuse me. MBK was tasked to provide the city with a problem identification report which would identify potential levee reaches in the Laguna West area that may not meet FEMA 44 Code of Federal Regulation 6510 or California Department of Water Resources urban levee design criteria freeboard standards as a result of the revised 100 and 200-year water surface elevations. And to also identify potential measures to correct potential freeboard deficiencies to meet FEMA freeboard standards in the event a new base flood elevation is established and to meet current ULDC or urban levee design criteria freeboard standards, and determine the typical cost per levee mile required to correct the existing freeboard deficiencies. As you can see on the, thank you so much. On the image on the right of the screen, you can see I-5 in the center, Elk Grove Boulevard, and Laguna Boulevard, just to kind of orient you on where we're talking about for the Laguna West levees. There's approximately 4 miles in length with an approximate levee crown of 12 feet and a landside and waterside slope of 2-to-1 and 3-to-1. That's horizontal to vertically, respectively. The Laguna West levees serve as a perimeter levee system which protect from floodwaters from Beach Stone Lake. Sacramento County originally certified the levee system as meeting FEMA requirements in 2000. And the Laguna West levees were later annexed into the city and the city is now responsible for operations and maintenance activities. The Laguna West levees were designed and are FEMA certified based on hydraulics developed in the late 90s when the Sacramento River East levee was an accredited levee. In 2010, FEMA de-accredited the Sacramento River East levee. The levee system currently ranges in elevation from 21 to 22 feet based on a design water surface elevation of 18 feet. Revised hydraulics with the required breach of the Sacramento River East levee result in a 200-year water surface elevation of 21.8 feet, which may result in potential overtopping at low portions of the levee system, possible system outflanking at assumed high ground terminus, both on the northeast and the southeast ends of the system, depths of flooding greater than 3 feet in portions of the Laguna West floodplain, and based upon the revised hydraulics, the levee system would require an average raise of approximately 3.5 feet to comply with urban levee design criteria freeboard requirements. Just to give you a little graphic of what I talked about to make it a little more clear for you, you can see the existing levee with elevations of the crown of 21 to 22 feet, 18 feet for the current design water surface elevation from the 90s when the Sacramento River East levee was accredited. And then the revised hydraulics are showing initial values of 21.8 feet for the 200-year water surface elevation. So in order to meet freeboard requirements for urban levee design criteria, you'd have to raise the levee on average 3.5 feet throughout the system. So that's what our analysis and our costs and everything are based on, is this theory here, basically. Now I'll take you through our conclusions and recommendations. The levee system does not meet current ULDC or urban levee design criteria freeboard standards. An average raise of 3.5 feet that I showed on the previous graphic is needed to meet the urban levee design criteria freeboard standards. The initial floodplain analysis indicates that this would cause depths of flooding greater than 3 feet in the Laguna West, in portions of the Laguna West area. The conceptual cost estimate to complete the 3.5-foot levee raise or levee raise flood wall combination that was described in the report is approximately $15.2 million. And as you can see in the graphic on the right, the levee raise portion would be on the southern portion in blue, and the yellow portion on the west side of Laguna West would be flood walls due to geometric constraints and things of that nature. And then at the end of both the blue and the yellow sections on the northeast and southeast, that is the assumed high ground. But with these revised hydraulics, the high ground may need to be extended further and require further analysis and such to determine if that needs to take place as well. That is included in that $15.2 million. We also recommend that an O&M manual for the Laguna West levees be produced that's specific for the Laguna West system. And this report, however, does not evaluate whether the levee system meets all FEMA and urban levee design criteria, and it does not provide feasibility level analyses or survey data, provide feasibility level recommendations, or provide an assessment of funding opportunities for the city. The next steps for the city's consideration is to develop a 200-year floodplain map for the Laguna West levee system. And so basically there would be a 200-year water surface elevation for land use planning that would be determined, and conduct the required hydraulic analyses to support this. A feasibility study that would conduct the required technical analyses, determine if the system meets all ULDC, urban levee design criteria, and FEMA criteria, recommend potential alternatives and potential funding opportunities, and it would cost approximately $1 million. Another option is partnership with other local entities, which could provide potential cost-shared alternatives to reduce water surface elevations. And the conceptual cost estimate for improving the Laguna West levee system to all ULDC standards is estimated to cost on the order of $23 to $46 million due to the constrained project footprint and other deficiencies that the system may have with encroachments or geotechnical or whatever it may find.
When you say all ULD standards, you're talking under seepage as well?
Exactly.
Thanks.
Yes. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Nancy? I have a couple, Nancy. Thank you very much. I know it's a lot to take in. So in your recommendations, you mentioned doing a 200-year water surface design elevation, but you had already used one to project a higher water surface elevation. Can you just, for folks listening or watching, can you distinguish the two and thus why it's needed to do a different water surface elevation?
This is Rick Reinhardt with MBK Engineers. I'll respond to that question, Councilmember Soon. The water surface we've developed is for the Beach Lake levee, and so what we're talking about is a water surface specific to the Laguna West area once a levee's failed. And so our water surface and hydraulics that have been done are for the water side of the existing levee. So then we would look at what happens when the levee overtops, it fails, and what the resultant floodplain would be as a result of that.
Okay, thank you. And actually, Rick, is there other options besides the 3.5-foot flood wall, such as armoring, or that we could use?
There are some other options that could be considered. Two things that could be looked at is the existing levee could be armored for designing it to overtop, and then there could be a slight raise with some armoring to withstand overtopping from wind-generated waves. You wouldn't want to have depths of 1 or 2 feet of water going over the levee, but if it's just the waves going over the top of the levee, that could be one way to armor it. But there could also be options where you look at lowering the water surface in the Beachstone Lake area that would also reduce the amount of raise that's required and avoid costs that way. So there's projects such as the McCormick-Williamson project that the state of California is pursuing, or there could be other actions that you could partner with SAFCA that would reduce the water surface that this levee is withstanding.
Right. Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'm going to open up for public comment. I see Michael Manaski signed up to speak. And at this time, Michael is the only person signed up to speak.
This problem identification report was not made available until yesterday, Tuesday, January 9th. This appears to make it difficult, if not impossible, to analyze the consultant's findings. Such late notification is apparently a violation of the Brown Act, the state's open meeting law. It's my opinion that the city should not proceed with approving further analysis by MBK Engineering as the study consultant unless and until the problem identification report is resubmitted in a timely manner for public review. Furthermore, there's an apparent conflict of interest with those city council members whose work and campaign funding comes from special interest parties, which include speculators, builders, financial agencies, and landowners. Councilman Darren Suen has such a conflict with his employment as a flood agent for the state of California. Mr. Suen's work on the Yola Bypass includes supervision and control of the watershed just upriver from the proposed site. Mr. Suen, like his council colleagues, has taken campaign contributions from many businesses interested in further development of Laguna West. He and his fellow councilmen are taking action on behalf of their campaign sponsors and contributors to saddle resident taxpayers with two burdens: the high cost of levee flood improvements and increased flood risk to the city. The study recommended by the city and the consultant comes at a cost to taxpayers of $1 million. If it's found that the levee improvements are unwise, unworkable, or unaffordable, those funds will have enriched only the contractor while saddling taxpayers with its cost. The bottom line has not been considered. That is, how will the levee raise and flood walls be paid for? general funds from the city coffers, federal funds from a vindictive party in the White House. Let's spend $1 million studying in an area that should never have been developed so as to spend $150 million more on protecting it from 200-year flood events. Meanwhile, should we fail to prepare for a millennial inundation? Business expansion has hit a wall in Elk Grove. The council has failed to take into account traffic circulation in many of its environmental reviews, and which has resulted in catastrophic congestion. There should be 2 jobs per household in a city that has less than 1. This study demonstrates that despite saving Laguna West from flooding, the main arterials, Interstate 5, Laguna Boulevard, and Elk Grove Boulevard, will all be underwater. How would business activity take place when streets are flooded and impassable? I suggest that we allow, or I propose that Laguna West and other flood-prone areas should be allowed to revert to their riparian and alluvial legacies. Failure to build further flood mitigation in Laguna West can be seen as an opportunity to shed past mistakes for constructive solutions. Even urban land can be rededicated to the interests of Mother Nature as open spaces, parks, and reforestation. Perhaps in her wisdom, Mother Nature can mitigate the error that is the human business development of Laguna West.
Thank you, Michael. So I just want to get council's comments or input in on Mr. Manaski's comments about Brown Act violation and conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a Brown Act violation. The Brown Act requires that agendas be posted. That was done. It doesn't prohibit supplemental information to be presented to the council. When that information is presented to the council, of course, it becomes available to the public, so it's not a Brown Act violation. With respect to the claimed conflict of interest, I see no facts here that would constitute a conflict of interest on your behalf or any of the council members.
Thank you.
I believe that the comments by the city councilor are invalid, and that was the purpose of my testimony. And I believe that we get a lot of really bad advice from this firm. And
thank you, Michael. I want to ask you to wrap up, but I do want to clarify, Mr. Hobbs is actually an employee with the city of Elk Grove.
Right, and he still employs his old firm to supplement the work that's done by this.
Thank you, Mr. Manaski.
by the councilor.
I appreciate that.
But to say that this does not violate the spirit of the Brown Act. I mean, the Brown Act is a 1952 law, 54 law.
I really need to ask you to step away. Thank you.
I'm the only person that's commenting on this, and this has to do with the flooding, possible flooding.
I've given you over 3 minutes, Mr. Manaski.
That's fine, and I've been here for hours. And many people come here for many hours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
But if you still,
I'm happy to talk to you though after the meeting and explain to you the requirements of SB 5 and why not just the city of Elk Grove, but cities throughout the state are in the Central Valley are required to comply with SB 5, a state mandate. But I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, but now I'd like to move on, please.
But that requirement to comply with SB 5 is not the same as a compulsion. The city council is not compelled
Mr. Manaski, you've been asked to step away
to spend
from
$1 million
podium.
to spend $1 million on a study that was delivered late.
Captain Albright, can I please ask you to ask Mr. Manaski to step away from the podium?
That was delivered late, for the record. And by the way,
Please step
my comments
away.
are in the green.
Please,
are in the green
please
sheet,
step away.
along with the late report.
I'm more than willing to talk to you after the meeting. I've given you ample time to speak.
But this is a public meeting, and private meetings, that's the way you do business, and that's not the right way to do it.
I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting.
No, this
Okay.
should be
Thank you.
an open forum.
So at this time, seeing no further speakers, I'm going to close public comment and seek direction from the council.
You're the expert.
And you stated before that this is something that we had to do, so I agree with it.
Yeah, and so, there's, I think a lot of communities are getting faced with the same issue. At this time, my opinion, I think the appropriate thing to do is determine how to get a better idea of what our risk is. The recommendation of getting a 200-year water surface elevation is the appropriate action. I think it's the most cost-effective at the time right now, and then we can determine at that point, have a better idea of what our risk is, and then we can decide what kind of improvements we want to move forward with. So, Bob, any input from you? I see you nodding.
No, I think that's the right step. I think to jump off and try to do $1 million study, I think, is a little premature. I think just trying to go back, because the water surface elevation we're talking about is based on a safe study that was done a number of years ago, based on a failed levee scenario. And so I think it would be good for us to go back and look at that in detail and get a better idea of what the conditions really are now, and to take into account not only those improvements that have been made that are ongoing now and perhaps planned in the future that could, because any lowering of the water surface elevation obviously will have a corresponding reduction in cost.
Right. And as I recall, that $1 million, half of it was for geotechnical investigations.
Yeah, the biggest cost there is really going in and doing all of the geotechnical to try to understand if we have an underseepage. So a lot of that cost that you see that jumps up above the 15 million has to do with underseepage.
Yeah.
So if you go and you say we have to raise the levees, and you go and you do the geotechnical and find out, no, we don't have underseepage, all of a sudden the costs become significantly lower. So
right.
I think it's, if we have to go that route, but I think the first thing we need to do is really take a look at the hydraulics.
Yeah, agree. And so for folks that don't understand, the underseepage failure mode is the water finding its path underneath the ground, and because water wants to find the path of least resistance, so it finds the path underneath the ground and then comes up on the land side of the levee. It starts to pull sediment with it in a suction manner, and then causing the levee to fail. A lot of the levees in the northern parts were built on silty soils. Down here, where a lot of its soils are clay, so it's a lot more impervious to water. And these levees were built in around 1990, I think, as I recall. So it wasn't built over 100 years ago. So even though the design criteria changed, the physical nature of these levees that it was built on was much better than levees like in Natomas and farther north. So again, suggesting, if the council agrees with me, let's get a better idea of the water surface elevation first. Okay. Got what you need? Thank you. All right. Next item, please.
So on to item 10.5, which is consider an ordinance amending Elk Grove Municipal Code Chapters 4.27, 6.22, and 9.24 concerning smoking regulations.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, this is just bringing back an item that confirms your direction from a few meetings ago to revise the ordinances with respect to smoking regulations. What this ordinance does is aligns with state law, raises the age of purchase for cigarettes to 21, with the exception of active military, who are allowed to purchase tobacco products at 18. That's just state law. This also revises the restrictions and expressly prohibits smoking of any substance, which would include cannabis and marijuana, at outdoor dining facilities. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I recommend, after you take public comment, to move the ordinance forward for first read.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hobbs? No? No? Okay. With that, I want to open to public comment. I see Kimberly Bankston Lee, and then Twyla Laster to speak.
Thank you for pronouncing it right. Thank you for having
Good
phonetics
guess.
on there, too.
Thanks.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Suen and council members. Again, my name is Kimberly Bankston Lee, and I'm the Senior Program Director of Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Safe Places. We are a nonprofit that provides resources and tools that help communities with non-smoking policies, for one. We work with African American and low socioeconomic communities to change policies that improve outcomes for health and well-being. In 2016 and 17, we conducted a convenience survey of Elk Grove residents during events such as the Giant Pumpkin Festival, the Western Festival, the Banana Festival, and also on Facebook, to determine if residents were being exposed to secondhand smoke in outdoor areas and if there was support of policies to prohibit smoking in outdoor areas. There were 303 respondents, and I'm going to highlight some of the data. And this is a convenient sample, so it's not a scientific poll. An overwhelming majority smelled smoke while in restaurants with outdoor patios at 64%. In bars with outdoor patios, 66% experienced smoke. At parks, 69%, although these are, the parks are smoke-free. And outdoor shopping plazas, 74%. And while attending outdoor events, 81%. So overwhelming residents experience being exposed to smoke in outdoor areas. Over 3/4 of the survey respondents report that the smoke bothered them, and 88% think that smoke is unsafe, which we do know is true, but we were trying to understand the community. 34 to 41% of respondents said they'd visit outdoor areas more often if they were smoke-free, and 66% would support a law that makes outdoor areas non-smoking. I'm providing a survey, a summary of our survey for you tonight. I'll leave it with the clerk. Lastly, there are nearly 100 jurisdictions in the state of California that prohibit smoking in outdoor dining areas, including locally the city of Rancho Cordova. Thank you for considering protecting the residents, employees, and visitors of Elk Grove from secondhand smoke exposure, which kills over 53,000 people every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Twyla Laster, and then next is Tim Gibbs. Hi, good to see you again.
Yes, it's good to see you as well. Good evening, everyone. Again, I am Twyla Laster. I'm the program manager for the Soul Project. I'm a new resident of Elk Grove, and I am a constituent, thank you, of Councilmember Dietrich. So as a tobacco control advocate for the past 20 years, a parent and a grandparent, I am concerned about the problem of tobacco use, targeting of the tobacco industry towards our young people and persons living at or below poverty level, and the need to improve public health from the dangers associated with secondhand smoke. Smoking is still a major cause of death and is a risk factor of cardiovascular disease, which is one of the top 5 health conditions impacting residents in Elk Grove and also throughout the state. There's strong evidence to support the need to restrict tobacco in outdoor areas. The United States Surgeon General has stated that there's no safe level of exposure to tobacco smoke, and a Stanford University study also found that outdoor secondhand smoke is comparable to indoor levels. So the proposed ordinance provides an opportunity for the City Council to protect all residents from tobacco-related diseases and health disparities associated with secondhand smoke, in addition to improving the business climate by increasing the number of fresh air destinations here in Elk Grove. So the proposed amendment should include restaurants, bar and patio areas during regular business hours as far as, and also private use. The use of electronic smoking devices, plant and synthetic materials as part of a comprehensive secondhand smoke policy. So I thank you for your consideration, and I hope that the information that we have provided for you over the past year will encourage immediate action.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tim Gibbs, and that's the final speaker I have signed up. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you. I'll keep my comments short. I'm Tim Gibbs. I'm with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, and we support this proposal. As was mentioned earlier, Elk Grove would be joining nearly 100 cities in California. We support proposals like this because outdoor dining areas are one of the last places where workers are exposed to significant amounts of secondhand smoke. In addition to the workers, families and families with children don't want to be forced to breathe toxic secondhand smoke either. As mentioned earlier, there's no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke, according to the Surgeon General, and smoke-free policies change social norms by making non-smoking behavior the expected normal behavior, and smoke-free laws encourage smokers to quit or at least cut down on their smoking and decrease youth initiation. So we appreciate that this issue's before the City Council, and encourage you to, and I vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And that was our last speaker, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and defer back to council for deliberation.
Mayor, I move to introduce and waive the full reading by substitution title only in ordinance amending chapters 4.27, 6.22, and 9.24 of the Elk Grove Municipal Code concerning smoking regulations.
Again.
All right. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. And that is the last item, so I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.